Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. It's 7 o'clock. It is Thursday, the 12th of February, and we are here and we are ready to go. Well, when I say ready to go, almost ready to go, because I'm waiting for a cup of coffee, because I've been drinking quite a lot of coffee this morning for one reason or another. And I'm delighted to say that not only am I joined by Elliot Keck in the studio from Taxpayers Alliance, Pooch has got a new assistant with him called Charlotte, who is, of course, the woman. We might have to show your face at some point. The woman who sets everything up, the woman who, bizarrely, despite knowing her for years, I've never actually met. And it's not disappointment, I have to say. I'm very happy to say that she's here helping out. Thank you very much. There you go. There's the hand, the Charlotte hand. We've got Charlotte's web, the Charlotte's hand. Anyway, so a very warm welcome to you, Charlotte. Welcome to London. Thanks for coming in and getting up so early. Thanks to all of you for tuning in, of course. Loads of you are watching already. We've got three big stories to talk about this morning, which I think are the three stories of the day. One is, of course, the Manchester United boss, whose name is Sir Jim Ratcliffe, one of the top entrepreneurs this country has ever produced, right? A man that knows a thing or two about business, who came out yesterday and gave an interview. He's one of Britain's richest men. He moved his primary residence to the tax haven of Monaco in 2020. Who can blame him? I think I might do the same thing soon. And he basically said that Britain has been colonised by immigrants, which, of course, everybody realises and knows to be the truth. Keir Starmer, of course, came out last night and said it was a terrible thing to say, and basically he should apologise. Well, sorry, Mr Starmer. I think you're the one that should be apologising for continuing to hire paedophiles' mates, right? Because we got another one yesterday, Lord Doyle, a man who supported another man who had pictures of children having sex, right? Child sex images, which he pleaded guilty to while he was running for office in Scotland. So we'll get into all of that. That's the other big story. Is Keir Starmer once again still surviving for yet another day, when of course he shouldn't be surviving for yet another day. Front pages all about that. Prime Minister knew his peerage pick had back to sex offenders, as the front page of the Times. So Keir Starmer nominated a former advisor for a peerage, despite being told that he had provided a paedophile counsellor with support because he believed in his innocence. What's wrong with these people in Labour who seem to believe in the innocence of paedophiles, who don't believe the stories, who don't believe the police charges, who don't believe the convictions? This bloke who ended up actually pleading guilty to these charges, a guy called Sean Morton, pleaded guilty to possessing and distributing indecent images of children. And yet Starmer knew about it last December, as it was pointed out to him in the House of Commons yesterday during Prime Minister's questions, and he still nominated him for a peerage in January. And the reason we know that he knew in December was because it was on the front page of the Sunday Times. Not exactly difficult, this stuff, is it? And then finally, speaking of paedophiles, not that Andrew is one, but he's on the front page of The Sun, royal exclusive, credit card. The Queen, Philip and Charles loaned Andrew £12 million to pay off Virginia Giuffre, and he hasn't paid back a penny. According to a piece in the Sun. Shamed Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was loaned £12 million by his parents and brother Charles to pay off sex accuser Virginia Giuffre, and has yet to give any back. My question for the King would be this: if you gave your brother money to pay off somebody who he had had sex with who was underage, does that not in some way impugn that you don't disavow what he did? And that is, I think, the big problem for the King. Some £1.5 million was paid by the then Prince Charles, with other royals chipping in. Can you imagine Andrew going round the dinner table on a Sunday? You know, hey, guys, I think I've got this girl, and she says we had sex and she was only 17. And the thing is, I've got to give her some money. So do you think you could maybe cough up some for us? You know, how much do you think you could give me? And Charles goes, how about I give you £1.5 million? Mummy can give you another 10. How about you, Anne? Have you got anything lying around, you know, in your Coots account? Oh, yes, I could give you another couple of million. Yeah, what's going on, right? This woman who ended up killing herself over this, right, was paid off to the tune of about 11 million quid. Unbelievable stuff. Anyway, we've got loads of other stories to talk about. Let's say a very good morning to Elliot Keck. Very good to see you, Elliot.
Morning.
Where should we start? Should we start with Starmer in PMQs yesterday, who was literally giving one of his worst performances, I think, ever, that I've ever seen. We've got quite a few clips today. Let's go. And this is probably the first and only time this will ever happen. Ed Davey actually did something good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he came out yesterday. Pooch, I don't know if we've got this one ready. Yeah. Ed Davey said this.
To appoint one paedophile supporter
cannot be excused as misfortune. To point 2 shows a catastrophic lack of judgment. The Right Honourable Gentleman once told this House that when a Prime Minister refuses to take responsibility, and I quote, "It only serves to convince people that things cannot get better, that governments cannot improve people's lives, and that progress is not possible because politics does not work." Does he still agree with himself? And does he share my fear that is exactly what is happening now?
Minister.
People in this country, millions of people, have been let down for years and years and years. And one of the reasons was austerity, which his party supported. He should take accountability and take responsibility for what he has inflicted on this country.
So, Elliot, Keir Starmer does not take the opportunity to apologise for recommending that a paedophile enabler and apologist should be sent to the House of Lords. Doesn't apologise for allowing Peter Mandelson to inveigle his way into the US ambassadorial role, despite the fact that he's also a big friend of the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Instead, he attacks Ed Davey for being in government, 13 years ago? And causing austerity to Britain. Hardly really appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, bearing in mind a time when the Lib Dem Conservative coalition was trying to clean up the massive mess of the public finances that the previous Labour government made a very difficult situation for someone like Ed Davey and the Lib Dems, who, are naturally more inclined to spend a lot more money, but, actually, broadly, I think did the right thing for much of that period and took the situation seriously. And I think the Prime Minister disgraced himself yesterday. He disgraced the office. I thought he was an embarrassment. I sat there feeling ashamed that he was the Prime Minister of the country. I think he should apologise to Ed Davey. Ed Davey asked a very, very serious question about what it does to the credibility of politicians.
And the credibility of his... And the people believe that politics doesn't work.
Exactly,
which is the right
and
thing
this
to
being
say.
evidence of that, and Keir Starmer stood up and started just jabbing his finger at Ed Davey, shouting at him. He completely lost his cool. I think it was an absolute disgrace.
I think he reveals himself to be not a very nice man. And one of the
he came across like that,
And one of the things that he's always banging on about is how sort of, solid he is, how he cares about people, how he loves Britain, he loves his country, he wants to, make it better for everybody, he wants to give money back to people, put it in their pockets. He's actually just a horrible, nasty, lefty, socialist. I don't want to say the word wanker, but he is. Sorry. I'm just going to say it.
You can't say wanker.
Can I not say that? No, I can't say it apparently. Sorry about that. But I apologise in retrospect for having said that. But that's what he is.
Yeah, people reveal themselves when, they're owning up to their own mistakes and dealing with their own mistakes. It's so easy to pour, to throw hot coals on people that have made mistakes and to be holier than thou and sanctimonious. It's so easy to do it. But when you're dealing with your own problems, your own failings, your own misgivings, that's when people reveal themselves.
Indeed.
And he really has revealed himself
And
over
he
the last few
also
days.
is completely hypocritical, isn't he? Because during the time when Boris Johnson was having difficulties, whether it was over his moral code or whether it was over Partygate or whether it was over Pincher and all of that business, right? And he kept demanding that he resign. And under these circumstances, he's done a lot worse. And in fact, at one point yesterday, he compared Partygate to his support for paedophile enablers.
Disgraceful.
Which is ridiculous, right? I think we've got that clip as well. This is Kemi Badenoch talking about this guy Doyle, right? Matthew Doyle. Despite knowing that he had stayed friends with a Labour councillor charged with child sex offences, he continually backed him to become a peer in the House of Lords. And only this week did he decide that actually he should take the whip away from him, not for the first time, and basically say, you're no longer a member of the Labour Party. The Mail has got a front page headline that says Labour women's fury over second paedophile crisis, because as Ed Davey said, to appoint somebody once, despite their friendship with a paedophile, is certainly unfortunate. But to do it twice is outrageous. Right, have a look at Kemi Badenoch.
The Sunday Times published on the front page that Doyle campaigned for a man charged with child sex offences. Yet, despite the Prime Minister knowing this, he gave Doyle a job for life in the House of Lords anyway. Why?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Matthew Doyle did not give a full account of his actions. And on Monday, I promised my party and my country there would be change. And yesterday, I removed the whip from Matthew Doyle. I'll tell you what other action we've taken, Mr. Speaker. Along with the Safeguarding Minister, I and this government have introduced the most far-reaching violence against women and girls strategy.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister pretends not to know about Matthew Doyle. It was on the front page of the Sunday Times. He cannot explain why he gave this man a peerage. We saw it with Mandelson, and now we see it with Doyle. Isn't that what a former prosecutor would call an established pattern of behaviour?
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to take no lectures from the Tories in standards in public life. She defended Partygate for months and months and months. And even now she says it was overblown. The Shadow Foreign Secretary broke the ministerial code by bullying. Boris Johnson kept her. The leader of the opposition promoted her. She sits on her front bench. Her former Shadow Justice Secretary complained about not seeing enough white faces in Birmingham, and she was too weak to sack him for racism.
Nobody buys it, Mr. Speaker. Not even the Labour women, because they know he always puts the Downing Street Boys Club first. And how dare he criticise us? We weren't the ones stuffing government with hypocrites and paedophile apologists.
I mean, what a great point she makes there. You know, we weren't the ones stuffing the government with paedophile apologists. How dare he, as she said, try to equate Partygate with paedophilia? Yeah, I mean, that is a Labour position now, right? They think they're the same. Yeah. So, you know, you can be forced to resign because you had a drink and some cake. Yeah. Because that's just as bad as having sexual images of children.
Yeah. And Boris did actually resign. This is the thing, right. You know, Boris did actually resign over this. Boris went. The Conservative Party kicked him out, right? I mean, even if you think, which is absurd, that Partygate was as bad as this, that should still mean that Keir Starmer should be, you know, walking out number 10 with his hands held up.
And the truth is, the only reason he's not walking out of number 10 is because he's surrounded by weak, hopeless, useless, frightened cabinet members like David Lammy, Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, and all the rest of them, who are too scared to actually take him on.
Well, Streeting is panicking because he's friendly with Mandelson. Yeah. Rayner's panicking because she still has a stamp duty tax unpaid, and particularly she's waiting to hear if there's going to be a fine for her tax dodging activities. After, of course, again, she was judge, jury and executioner over Nadeem Zahawi's tax affairs. Yeah. I mean, it is incredible just how cynical and hypocritical this lot of Labour politicians are. I'm not sure if we've ever seen it in our lifetimes. And I remember thinking the whole time they were in opposition, and, you know, they painted themselves as the sort of collected saints of the Catholic Church and of British politics. I did always think, I bet they have some skeletons in their closets, and God forbid if they get into power and some of those skeletons start coming out. And it's amazing how quickly they've come out. It really is. And just how many skeletons there are.
Well, I mean, I was talking to somebody last night about how everyone's forgotten, and hardly anyone mentions the fact that within, and this is why I think I took against Starmer straight away, within, 2 weeks of him getting into Downing Street, we suddenly discovered that he'd been having his clothes bought and paid for by Lord Ali, who was buying him spectacles, who was buying his wife clothing, who was lending his apartment to Starmer to pretend that he lived there, so that he could make films and videos as if he was sitting in his sort of front room when he was sitting in his penthouse apartment. You know, and the influence that Ali had on selection of candidates for the Labour government.
Access to number 10, didn't he?
Access to number 10 with a pass. Nobody's really ever explained that. You know, they are rotten to the bloody core, these people. And they should all go. And we should have an election. I've been saying it for about a year now. But I don't understand how he's still there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was here last week, wasn't I, last Thursday? Yeah. And I think last Thursday, if you said to me, I'm going to be back here next week and Keir Starmer's still going to be Prime Minister, I would have raised an eyebrow. But he has just about cling on. And as he said, it's because they're all too weak to
He's like a limpet, isn't he?
But what's really shocking is the way that sort of meek tone that he temporarily took on Friday, where he sort of feigned being apologetic and feigned
very sorry.
A bit of humility. Very sorry how quickly that's turned into
He's not sorry
anger.
anymore.
No, he's certainly not.
Well, we are. We're all very, sorry.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, this morning, I saw it was just put it out last night. Harry Cole put out a very interesting piece that he'd written the year before about Nick Brown, because it turns out that Nick Brown, who was suspended from the Labour Party and had the whip removed because of allegations made against him of what we are told was a serious sexual offence, or possibly more than one.
Yeah.
He was never reported to the police by the Labour Party, even though they knew that the allegations against him were that serious.
Yeah, and you compare it with how quickly the Keir Starmer operation has moved against the left of the Labour Party. Not people I have any great love for, but it is very clear that there is a two-tier system within the Labour Party where if you're one of us and if you're our mates, we will try and defend you. Only to the point where, you know, it gets to the Prime Minister's door and then he may have to kick you to the curb. But they'll at least make an attempt.
Yeah.
But if you're on the left of the Labour Party, if you're not one of Keir's tribe, they'll go for you very, very quickly.
Absolutely right. And then another great error that you made last night, Keir Starmer, as we mentioned at the top of the show, Jim Ratcliffe on the front pages today, on the front pages of the Daily Express, in which he says that the UK has been colonised by immigrants. Same on the front page of the Times. So Jim Ratcliffe, one of the top earning entrepreneurs in Britain, he founded the global chemicals group INEOS, blames the poor economy on immigration and a large number of people claiming benefits. He said political leaders must do some difficult things with the UK to get it back on track. Have a look at what he had to say.
And huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause...
It's been colonised?
It'll cause... Well, yeah. The UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it? I mean, the population of the UK was 58 million in 2020. Now it's 70 million. That's 12 million people.
You met recently with Nigel Farage, didn't you?
I did.
Do you think that they would be a good government if they were to win the next election?
I think Nigel is an intelligent man, and I think he's got good intentions, but in a way you could say exactly the same about Keir when Keir came in. I think it needs somebody who's prepared to be unpopular for a period of time to get the big issues sorted out, would be my view.
I mean, you can hear the incredulity in the Sky News interviewer's voice, can't you? Sorry, what? Colonised? What do you mean? You know, and then people were questioning the fact that he got the population figures wrong, which he hasn't, because people are going, yeah, he got that all wrong because there's not 70 million people here. Well, there bloody well are, actually. Yeah. You know, there were 70 million people on the tube yesterday when I was trying to get it, you know, and none of them were from Britain, I can tell you that. But the thing is that, you know, again, Keir Starmer gets an opportunity to be sensible and to be measured about one of Britain's top businessmen saying something which clearly is troubling an awful lot of people in the country. And instead of saying, look, we understand why he feels that way, but I think he's wrong, he says he's totally wrong and he should apologise.
Yeah, I think everyone is so sick of this, aren't they? People are so focused on the language that you've used, how you've said something, and not the broader underlying point. Yeah. The simple reality is there are communities right across England, right across the UK, which have changed from being basically 100% white English to, you know, very, very small numbers of white English British people.
Well, London's
in just 25, 30 years.
London's
now,
one of them.
Whatever you think of that, you know, use the word colonisation is not a million miles from the truth. You are talking about one community from another country moving in and now dominating a community that they weren't formerly in. Now, you know, you can talk about whether or not he's used the exactly precise use of words, but people are fed up with this. People want to talk openly and honestly about this issue without worrying about every single word that they say. He is not a trained media commentator.
No.
You know, he's not.
But he's a very successful businessman.
He's a very successful businessman. He should be taken seriously, but we shouldn't be poring over every single word choice that he makes, because this is not his day job. His day job is thinking about numbers, thinking about business strategy. It's not thinking about, oh, if I use this word, it might be taken out of context. People are absolutely fed up with this. They want people to deal with the actual fundamental issues and the actual fundamental underlying realities, and not just the tone that someone's used or the language that someone's used. People are absolutely sick of this stuff.
But this is the thing that the Labour government has kind of encouraged, because we were talking about this, I think, last week, that they're more upset and angry with people who are criticising, you know, sex offenders than they are about actual sex offences.
Yeah.
So that, for example, a lot of people are making hay about the fact that Keir Starmer last week, as you say, when he was feeling sorry for himself, decided he should apologise to the victims of Andrew and the victims of Epstein, but he has yet to apologise to anyone who might be a victim of the grooming gangs in Britain, or any of the young women who have been attacked by, and sexually assaulted by illegal migrants, of which there was one just this week, a 12-year-old girl who was raped and assaulted
awful.
in Nuneaton multiple times, had film made of it as well. I mean, when is he going to recognise that this is a problem?
Yeah, and it's because they have no solutions. And if you have no solutions to a problem, it's a lot easier to talk about the language that people use, talk about the way that people describe things. And people, as I said, people are fed up with it. It was the exact same with the trans issue, wasn't it? Where people were so focused on the language that people were using and not the fundamental... Yeah, exactly.
A trans woman, I suppose it was, shot...
A gun person in a dress is what the police...
is what the Royal Canadian Mounted Police actually said.
Yeah.
Repeated by the BBC, repeated by Sky, and I think at one point he was described as a female in a dress.
Yeah, that was at the press conference. Yeah. So the initial radio report out reporting that there's this dangerous person walking around killing people was that it was a gun person in a dress, which is a very misleading thing to say.
It is.
You should be saying a male in a dress, because it's very, very clear what a male in a dress looks like.
A bloke in a dress.
Yeah, and if you take a look at the bloke in a dress, you'll see it was definitely a bloke in a dress.
There's a bloke in a dress with a gun wandering about. You think that would be a pretty good statement to
It would be a very good statement to make, yeah. And yet the spokesperson for the police seemed more interested in preserving the right of this mass murdering individual to be called a female than the rights
of the dead people.
Yeah, victims and the public to speak openly and honestly using about who this person was. And it was only after a journalist pressed the spokesperson that the spokesperson eventually admitted that it was in fact a biological male.
Yeah, I know, absolutely incredible stuff. We've got an early nomination, Pooch and Charlotte, for Pedant of the Day. This would be from Jan. I haven't got it right in front of me, but I read it a minute ago. She's complaining about the fact that we've only got one Union Jack mug. And basically, can the budget not stretch to getting at least another mug so that we can have two Union Jack mugs?
Well, you've got to buy all the herons.
So, I've got a heron mug here. What's wrong with that? Look, keep calm and love herons, which is nice. I've also got a post bag, which I'm going to open up in a little while. And I've got a couple of boxes which look suspiciously like they may contain mugs, is all I know. Should we have a quick run through some of the other stories on the front pages? End of the Labour Boys Club on the front page of The Guardian. This is, again, a reference to the women in the Labour Party, because I noticed actually on the front bench yesterday, he seemed to have mostly men sitting around him, Starmer, which I presume is what he prefers. Sorry, I'm not trying to cast any aspersions at all. That would be wrong. But Labour women apparently are very unhappy because they're saying it's time to bring a woman into the cabinet. Maybe the cabinet secretary for the first time in the history of Downing Street should be a woman. But let's not forget what happened to Sue Gray. Sue Gray, who was meant to be this brilliant woman, who was meant to mastermind the first 100 days of Labour's government, didn't last 100 days. She lasted 93 days.
Yeah.
And she was not as brilliant as everybody thought, as it turns out. Not because she was a woman, but just because she wasn't really any good.
Yeah, and I think this has been a problem in the Labour Party for so long. They've bought into the DEI agenda so much that the idea of competence and merit to them is just it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
And so they really, really think that the problem was that they had a load of men in number 10. Now, most competent, sensible, hard-working blokes know that you shouldn't appoint a load of mates of paedophiles to senior positions in government.
Not a great idea. Or in any organisation.
Yeah, exactly.
Really. I'd generally be voting against that. There's two guys here. One's not got any friends who are paedophiles. One has. Who should we give the job to?
Yeah. Let's do the latter, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, he's got the right idea about tax and about rejoining the European Union. So it doesn't matter if he's got friends who are paedophiles. Just give him the job.
But so they're so obsessed with quotas and with people's backgrounds and racial and sexual and gender characteristics that they've completely forgotten how to employ and select competent, hardworking people that actually know what they're doing. And maybe a female cabinet secretary would be a brilliant thing. But if they pick one because she's female, then she may end up not doing a good job.
With Labour, I think the trouble is they're all Labour because the woman who they've got in mind is known as apparently the Queen of Woke.
Yeah,
she's a baroness of some description, and she's championed, believe it or not, the trans rights issue for years and years and years. So she probably wouldn't be an improvement at all. Got this from. I keep losing my place on here because it's moving so fast. There's so many of you giving me messages. But basically somebody's saying, what happened to the rent bots who set fire to his house? I'd really like this, right? Instead of rent boys, rent bots. I think that's quite an interesting phrase. Anyway, the point is their case comes up sometime in the future. They were in court, I think, in November. We don't really know when there's a time for them to reappear, but there will be a trial of some kind. One that should worry all of us, pints getting weaker over tax raids on page 1 of the Telegraph. Apparently, people who are running pubs are saying that their costs are getting so high that they're having to water down the alcohol in the beer in order to pay less duty on it. Yeah, that's right. It's also partly the changes to alcohol tax that was brought in by, I think it was the last government, unfortunately, where if a beer is under 3.4%, I believe, it pays a lower rate of tax. Yeah. So obviously publicans and brewers are incentivised to... You guys in Taxpayers Alliance, I mean, what is the reasoning behind that? Are they trying to get people to drink less or what? I think the idea is to get pubs and brewers to make lower strength beer because they've been overtaken by the nanny state agenda that is fed up with people having the right and the desire to drink most strong pints of ale, and... Yeah, most people now want to drink quite a lot of alcohol because the world has turned on them and has made their lives
when it rains every day for months.
It's right. Well, don't get me started on the weather.
Strong pints are bitter. What's wrong with that?
I went out again last night, and I mean, I was 2 nights in a row. I've looked out the window and gone, actually, I don't want to go out, but I've gone out because I've had to. I just got completely soaked. But the important thing here to say is this is not the fault of brewers and this is not the fault of pubs. This is the tax system that has been brought in to deliberately do this. And with pubs being hammered in the way they are, if they can find a way to save a little bit of money on the tax to keep their doors open for that little bit longer, then that is absolutely understandable. This is the fault of government. Yeah, absolutely right. I'll tell you what else is likely to be the fault of government. The front page of the Telegraph again. Labour up for closer ties with Europe. Another, misstep, if you like, against the will of the people. The will of the people was that we leave the European Union, we set off on our own, we have independence from, the super-state, and now Starmer and his cronies want to get back into it. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it's just cast. I think they're just casting around at the moment for anything that they can cling on to. And they're hoping if they cling on to an already sinking Europe, but they think we might be sinking faster than Europe, and if they cling on to Europe, they might be able to survive a little bit longer. But listen, as you said, the British people voted for independence from Europe, but independence means actually changing our regulatory policies, changing our taxation policies, changing our trade policies, and successive governments have failed to do that. So the advantages that Brexit offers have never been seized. And it's very, very sad to see that a government is considering just giving up on the whole project entirely. Yeah, absolutely right. There was no point in it if you're not going to do it properly. No. And it's a shame that we haven't had a good crack at it. No. Well, the point is that Brexit was never really properly exercised, was it, under Boris Johnson? Northern Ireland was sort of left outside as an outlier. Nobody really knew what was going on with that. But equally, they now want to say, we don't want to rejoin, we just want to be subject to their laws. And he's like, well, so what, you want the worst of both worlds? Yeah. So he wants to get none of the benefits of being in it, but all of the disadvantages. Yeah, we were once the world's greatest empire, and now we're planning on being a supine supplicant to Brussels. It's tragic. But it is. And these people don't know what the hell they're doing. Let's move on to the Royals, but first some Super Chats. Should we have some Super Chats? Have a look. Super Chats are back, of course. Simon has sent us another one. Thank you, Simon. He's very good, Simon. One from Frank. He said, fingers crossed today is Keir Starmer's last as Prime Minister. Well, that would be great. Easy Boy says, Mike Pooch, Charlotte, great to watch the best morning show on TV. Keep doing a great job. Thank you very much indeed. 7:29, by the way, is a little bit of a time check for you. We've got... there's the International Time Data Clock, whatever it's called. Funnily enough, it says the same time on every clock. So never mind where you are. It's 7:29 here. So Front page of the Times and the Sun, all about Andrew. Police are now assessing Andrew's leaks to Epstein. Thames Valley Police said yesterday officers are liaising with prosecutors and examining material in the Epstein files to determine whether a criminal offence is suspected and whether a full investigation is required. This is pretty serious stuff.
Yeah.
And we've got a poll out. Who is the least believable royal? Is it Andrew? Is it Harry? Is it Charles? Or is it William? And it might come as no surprise to you that Andrew is topping that at 61%. Harry comes second with 21%. Charles, the King, 11%. And William, obviously the most trusted of the royal family members of the male variety, 7%. Andrew's finished, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's been finished for a long time.
Do you think he's going to jail?
I mean, if the criminal charges have weight, then I would, I'd sort of quite like to see him in jail. It would mean that hopefully we never have to talk about him again, because he is a stain on, what is a fantastic British institution, and a British institution that mostly has been, run and managed by people with a genuine sense of public service, a genuine sense of dignity and integrity. Yes, they've made mistakes. But generally, I think the people that at the top of the royal family,
they're generally supported by the public as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And yet, Andrew, despite the fact he was one of the most influential and in one of the most highly respected and influential roles on planet Earth, decided to ruin it with some absolutely appalling and disgraceful behaviour.
He's always been known as a pretty rude individual and a pretty awkward person to deal with. But he was, I was told many years ago, quite a valuable kind of weapon in the trade situation, where we would take him to far-flung parts of the world, and because he was a royal, it would help with kind of, oiling the wheels of commerce, if you like. And so he was very popular in the Middle East, very popular in the Far East. But in The Sun today, they've got a big spread saying Andy's slush fund, basically, disgraced Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's plan to flog a Swiss ski chalet to repay millions in royal family loans collapsed after he made next to nothing from the sale. And this, if you remember, was a ski chalet that he sold for 19 million quid, which was, I think, slightly less than he bought it for. In 2022, and of course he didn't have that kind of money. It seems as though he borrowed it all from either members of his family or from Epstein.
Yeah, I mean the royal family should have discarded Andrew a long time ago.
Yeah, this
is of course the issue with having a family in such a position, because they obviously remain those familial ties, fraternal loyalties, and so on remain. But yeah, for the good of the institution, he should have been discarded a long time ago. It's been clear for many, many years he's a very, very rotten egg indeed.
Yes.
And as a result of their sort of lethargy and slowness in dealing with him, he has done serious damage to the royal family.
Yeah.
Of course, the royal family's recovered in the past from big hits to its credibility and its respectability, but this is a crisis for sure.
It really is. And I mean, even to the point where some people, we discussed this earlier in the week, are suggesting that it might be something that will force the King, Charles, to abdicate, because it might be that he's under too much pressure.
Yeah.
It might be that, the fact that he took part in this kind of cover-up to some extent, although that's probably a bit of a harsh phrase.
Yeah.
But he certainly took part in lending money to his brother so that he could avoid any kind of embarrassment over a sexual affair with a woman who, wouldn't have been underage in this country, but was underage in America.
Which matters.
Yeah, it kind of does matter.
It really does matter.
Because if you break the law where you are, it's a bit like, these, drug mules who go to Thailand and go, oh, I was only, carrying, £50,000 worth of heroin.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's a crime.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And, you're a 40-year-old member of the royal family, whether or not if she's 17, whether or not it's, technically under or over the legal age of consent, it really, really shouldn't matter. You should know that is not the right thing to do. That's a pretty grim and reprehensible thing to do, no matter what the technical age of consent is. And if you're making arguments about the age of consent in that situation, I think you should button up and hold your hands up. And
again, a bit like going to a country where that kind of activity is considered to be okay, and you just go, well, it's all right there. So what's the problem? Let's talk about tax, because you're from the Taxpayers Alliance, and I know that you were telling me earlier that there's a campaign currently that you're undertaking around Britain or around England and Wales, surrounding the places where you can't vote.
Yeah, that's
in the
right.
local elections in May. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so 29, as I'm sure your viewers will know a bit about this, but 29, many of your viewers may actually live in these places, but 29 councils have cancelled their elections in England this May. Some of them have actually cancelled their elections for the second year running. Any council that's cancelling election, in my view, and I think in the view of the residents of that council, they don't have a democratic mandate anymore.
Right.
And it's a pretty sacred principle in democracy that you only levy a tax if you have the democratic consent to do so. So our view is that if you are cancelling your elections, you should be banned from increasing council tax and any other charges that you may levy. So, councils charge things for like parking and garden waste and various other charges.
Right.
So we've launched a campaign calling those councils to freeze council tax and all other rates if they cancel their elections. We were in Sussex this Tuesday, had a fantastic response. We're heading to East Anglia, the North West, the Midlands and Essex to campaign on behalf of those residents, because local taxpayers shouldn't be forced to pay more if they're not getting a vote.
And I think I read, did I not, in the last week or two, I don't know if it was your figure, but quite a lot of money, like a couple of $100 million, has been charged in increases in council tax in some of those boroughs and some of those councils where they're not having elections. Yeah,
so we're expecting £121 million more in council tax being raised over the next financial year by the 29 local authorities. That's £121 million that won't have that stamp of democratic approval that is so sacred in our democracy. We're calling it no taxation without representation. Of course, that great rallying cry of the American revolutionaries in the 18th century, and we think it's an appropriate one for this day and age. It's very, very simple. Any of your viewers that live in any of the 29 areas, taxpayersalliance.com/democracy. They just have to find their local council, allow them to send a letter directly to their council leader, expressing that frustration, expressing their fury, and demanding a freeze to council tax and all other charges.
Good for you. Because we keep discovering new taxes. Pooch and I were talking the other day about cars, that they brought in a new car tax now, which apparently applies to anybody who buys a car which is worth more than, I think, 40,000 quid. It's another levy, which will be on top of road tax, which will be something like another £400 a year that you will have to pay, just because of the fact that you've been able to afford to buy a nice car.
Yeah. But that's across the tax system, right?
Yeah.
Across the tax system, there's all these hidden scaries, that are designed to punish people that dare to be affluent. If you own a second home, let's say you own a small holiday cottage somewhere on the coast, that council will probably be charging you double the council tax, despite the fact you're using the services much less than someone.
And that started in Wales, didn't it?
That started in Wales, but it's now across much of England. In Wales, it's been a disaster, and yet England decided to follow it regardless.
I mean,
and it's unbelievable the extent to which government is willing to punish the people that they're supposed to represent.
Phil's just saying there, no council tax or expenses to be claimed by individual councillors if they're not willing to give you a vote on whether or not you want them to stay in power.
Absolutely.
Then they shouldn't be able to claim anything.
Shouldn't be taking any allowances.
No fees, no council expenses without representation.
Absolutely
right. And you talk about holiday tax. The Sun have got a story saying holiday bosses have told the Chancellor that getaways are for relaxing, not taxing, because there are fears that staycations for people who are going to stay in Britain this year could rocket by an extra £100 or more. It's some kind of tax they want to put on holiday camps, according to the Sun. 200 bosses from holiday parks, hotels and other firms have written to Chancellor Rachel Reeves blasting the visitor levy, right? And apparently, according to the holiday tax set to hit UK residents as well as foreign visitors. The idea was originally, to put a sort of bedroom tax on visitors coming to the UK. But obviously, it also affects people who are going on holiday in the UK, which they're often encouraged to do in order to boost the local economy.
Yeah, we're not allowed to smoke, we're not allowed to drink a good strong beer, we're not allowed to buy a nice car, not allowed to own a second home.
Who do these people think they are?
And now we're not even allowed to, spend a few days on the, in Skegness.
Yeah,
trying to get a little bit of sun.
I know.
Listen, but it's the attitude of this government and the attitude of the state more broadly. They just want to punish every single pleasant activity that we might want to indulge in.
Isn't it? And here's one for you. I don't know if you've got a dog, but front page of the Mail, they've done a big spread on it inside. Why does an MRI scan for a dog cost 2,800 quid, but it's only £350 for a human?
It's a good question.
I mean, is it because it's got 4 legs?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. But they list a whole bunch of other things that cost more money. And I, as a dog owner, know that every single time you go anywhere near a vet, you basically have to just empty your pockets. which is pretty shocking. But imagine this, right? So if you were to look at the menu here from the vet, according to the Mail, an X-ray for a human, 99 quid. For a dog, £400. Tooth extraction, £500 for humans, £1,000 for a dog, right? A CT scan, £650 for a human, £1,200 for a dog. MRI, as we said, 2,800 versus 350, and a cataract operation for. I mean, who's giving a dog a cataract operation? You know, if the dog can't see, you know, I don't think it's not going to be the end of the world. Pooch may disagree. I don't know. Cataract op for a human, 2,000 to 3,000 quid. For a dog, nearly 5,000. You know, it's a bit like that joke, isn't it? My dog hasn't got a nose or something, and how does he smell? Horrible.
Yeah, I'd imagine it's because there's far fewer.
And one of my favourite stories of the day, and we're going to do this as plank of the day, but it's not going to be the ambassador. Britain's ambassador to NATO has been asked to stop shagging in the official residence of the NATO organisation with an Italian lover almost half his age. Apparently, she used to work for him. Francesca Cortini is her name. She's 29. His name is Angus Lapsley, 55. Apparently he's got a sort of grace and favour mansion at NATO HQ in Brussels, which is a converted 5-storey hotel. So, I mean, it's quite a nice place.
There's something about being a foreign diplomat, clearly.
Yeah. And apparently, you know, they're at it constantly, and he's made no attempt to hide their relationship, and he's now been told by fellow diplomats that he has to tone it down a bit.
Yeah, I mean,
keep it in your pants, I think, is the message.
There's something in the water, clearly.
Very good. And talking of water, the other great story, page 21 of the Daily Mail, the Supreme Court, no less, the
Patriots,
powers that be, have ruled that you cannot call oat milk milk because it's not milk.
It's not milk.
No.
Yeah, for once I agree with the Supreme Court.
Why?
Not normally an organisation I have much love for, but...
Well, actually, to be fair, maybe they're on the turn because, you know, they come out and said that, you know, a woman can only be a woman if she's born one, as opposed to somebody who's got a penis. And now you can't call oat milk milk.
Yeah.
I think that you should welcome them to the new right-wing kind of agenda.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at what Nigel Farage has to say about oat milk.
So I'm in a smart hotel in London. I've got a cup of coffee. I want some milk. Let's have a look. We've got semi-skim. They don't like that. Oat milk. What on earth's that when it's at home? Almond milk. All I want's proper bloody milk, not left-wing options. Proper milk. What's wrong with me asking for that?
Left-wing milk. Yeah. It's true. My understanding as well from the people I know at Reform is that if you go to a Reform press conference, you're not. And people from the Guardian turn up and ask for oat milk, and they get told to get lost. Yeah. There is no oat milk or almond milk, which is also not milk.
Grow up and drink it black if you can't have normal milk.
Yeah. Also, can you not just have full fat milk as opposed to skimmed milk, semi-skimmed? Yes,
that also doesn't count. Yeah.
No, it's not real, is it? And you can't. It's awful on your cornflakes as well. Anyway, listen, we've got so much to do today. We've got some great guests coming up. We've got many, many more videos to show you. We've got Plank of the Day. We've got Mike's box to open up. Is it? No, what? Is it sack? Sorry, my sack to open up, which I've got over here. And of course, your messages and your super chats. Keep them coming. It's now time for the. Actually, I should say thank you to Elliot first. Elliot Keck, thank you so much indeed. Go and join the Taxpayers Alliance campaign and join in with the ability to put pressure on your local council because they're not having elections and they still want you to pay them a load of council tax money. So that's a really, really well kind of thought out campaign and something you should take part in. Let's now get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, all. Here's the news with me, Edward Hughes. Oh, brilliant. Another glorious day in the United Kingdom on February 12th, 2026. Let's recap the absolute masterclass in national vibes, shall we? First up, billionaire Sir Jim Ratcliffe, you know, the bloke who owns a chunk of Manchester United and apparently fancies himself a geopolitical poet, has declared that the UK has been colonised by immigrants, and it's all costing far too much money. Shocking revelation from the man who's spent billions on footballers while the rest of us queue for NHS appointments. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, in a rare display of spine, demanded an apology because the comments were, wait for it, offensive and wrong. Groundbreaking stuff, truly shaking the foundations of discourse. Meanwhile, the royal adjacent soap opera rolls on. Fresh Epstein file drips reveal Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, rang up the late sex offender while he was in jail for advice on her bankruptcy. Because when you're drowning in debt, who better to call than Jeffrey? Death is better, she apparently reckoned at one point. Classy. And of course, Prince Andrew's name is floating around again like a bad smell that just won't leave the corridor. The palace is definitely searching files, any day now I'm sure. Over in London, counter-terror police are investigating a stabbing of 2 teenage boys at a North London school. The suspect's a former pupil who apparently popped by a mosque beforehand, because nothing says routine school day like that combo. Knife crime initiatives are being rushed forward so kids get support earlier. How novel. Elsewhere, snow and ice warnings because the weather's decided relentless rain wasn't humiliating enough. Housing market showing tentative signs of recovery. Translation, still unaffordable but slightly less apocalyptic. Scottish rocket startup on the brink of collapse despite £26 million of taxpayer cash. Because why not flush more money into space dreams while we can't afford GPs in the Lake District? And just for flavour, laughing gas canisters exploding at waste centres hundreds of times a week. Peak Britain. Even the bins are trying to take us out. So yeah, business as usual. Immigrants colonising us. Royals phoning pedos for financial tips. Kids stabbing each other. Weather trying to kill us. And billionaires complaining about money. What a time to be alive. God save the king. Or at least the branding. Because apparently we're now just UK government instead of His Majesty's. Priorities, people. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, tigers.
We thought wasn't in.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. That's Edward Hughes there, of course, with the news. It's coming up to 7:45. Tribute says, Mike, why can't you say wanker? Well, it's not that I can't say it, because I've just said it again. I try not to swear because I think, Howard Stern, one of my great broadcasting heroes in America, when he decided to go independent of mainstream kind of radio, and they gave him a show, and in fact, not just a show, they gave him a whole channel on something called Sirius XM. He said there came a point where, because there was no reason to sort of revolt against the rules, he'd kind of stopped swearing. So the fact is, I could swear more. I just think it's better not to, because people might be listening with their kids, and I don't want to upset anybody. But in this case, I said it because it's absolutely and utterly true. So I make no apology for it, but I'm going to try not to say it too often. But the trouble with Starmer is that he absolutely is so irritating. And whenever I play a clip of his, people say, would you stop playing clips of Starmer? He's so annoying. Really, really annoying. Now, we've got Super Chats coming in thick and fast. You can do it again now because we are back in that area. And one from Nick says this, love the brilliant new show, Mike. The only thing that is a bit off is the Kevin Maguire lookalike newsreader. He does look a bit like him, yeah, it's true. One here from Time Turner, which I think is a bit of a limerick. Starmer the farmer harmer looks like a scared llama. Who next? Rayner? She'd be a total failure. Should I pack my bags and move back to Australia? Very good. Very talented. And here's one from Brit Plays. They don't want us in pubs discussing Keir's Boys. Keir's Boys Club. I mean, that's what is the thing at the moment inside the Labour government and inside the Labour Party. The women are actually revolting. I saw Lisa Nandy was interviewed the other day and saying that she was constantly being briefed against by Morgan McSweeney and his ilk, and it was really, really difficult for women to do well. Matthew says this, amazing how many viewers you have every day. Well done, Mike. Keep beating Talk every morning. They are barely hitting 2,000 viewers. Well, as I often say, they do have other outlets and they do have other places where they can gain listeners and viewers, but not on YouTube, not as far as we're concerned. There we are. Now, lots more of you to talk to over the course of the next hour or two. We're going to be filming Plank of the Week later and also Plonk of the Week. But let's talk now to Mark Littlewood, who is, of course, economist and I'm going to say sort of, philosopher man, because I think you are, Mark. And I think we're all sitting around at the moment thinking, how is it possible that Keir Starmer is actually still the Prime Minister? He doesn't seem to have any authority. He doesn't seem to have any mandate. He doesn't seem to have any clue that he's not wanted anymore. And yesterday's performance in Parliament was absolutely, awful. One of the worst I think I've ever seen him give.
Yeah, good questions, Mike. I mean, here's a bit of philosophy for you then. Thanks for your kind introduction. That I think basically sentence of political death has been passed on Keir Starmer. It's just we don't know exactly when the execution will be carried out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is partly because, with the single exception of the leader of the Scottish Labour Party, everybody else in Westminster has bottled it.
Yeah.
None of them have actually come forward to deliver the coup de grace. And I thought his performance at PMQs yesterday was absolutely extraordinary. He keeps saying he's taking full responsibility for things, but then blames everybody else, either people who haven't told him the complete unalloyed truth, who get appointed to the House of Lords or to US ambassadorial roles, or even weirder, in his answer to Ed Davey, who asked a pretty good question, I thought, about, to appoint one paedophile adjacent person looks like unacceptable carelessness, but to appoint two looks like catastrophic misjudgment. His response, Starmer, was not to take full responsibility. It was to blame Ed Davey for the behaviour of the coalition government, which was more than 10 years ago.
Right.
So the idea that this guy will take any responsibility or accountability is for the birds, isn't it? So it's only a question of when the Labour Party finally cut him off at the knees. But my, oh my, they're taking their time, aren't they?
They really are. I mean, and Anas Sarwar was on TV yesterday. He was interviewed by STV up in Scotland, and they asked him if he still felt the same way and if he regretted, calling for the resignation of the Prime Minister. And he said, no. He said, I stand by what I said the other day. So he still says that he's right. He still says that Starmer should go. And yet Starmer seems completely kind of powerless to do anything about it. You would think if he was really going to show himself to be a tough leader, he'd go, well, you can't be part of my kind of inner circle, which Sarwar basically is, even though he's in another country in Scotland. If you don't want me to be in charge, surely he ought to somehow act against him there. But equally, the other thing that I found really galling was his kind of equivocation between Partygate and being friends with paedophiles, as if it's the same thing. I mean, it really isn't.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, in terms of, to give you an idea of this, of how much power has drained away from Keir Starmer, I think he's now completely at the mercy of his cabinet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you would have thought that he would have fired Wes Streeting for plotting against him. I mean, the endless briefings are coming out about how furious they are with the Health Secretary not being loyal and plotting against him and all the rest of it. But he hasn't got the power to fire his own Health Secretary, apparently.
No.
I think it would be harder for him to remove somebody in Scotland. I don't think that's wholly within his control. But in the same way, he can't fire Lucy Powell as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party because she has her own mandate.
Right.
But Wes Streeting remains in the Cabinet, having all but said that he thinks the Prime Minister should go, and the Prime Minister can't even fire him. I mean, this is a man who is now a prisoner of the rest of the higher echelons of the Labour Party. He can't move any of the pieces on the chessboard in any meaningful way. He's just being told by the rest of his party which pieces he needs to remove from the chessboard, who he needs to appoint into number 10 and all the rest of it. It is a complete lame duck Prime Minister. He's a completely lame duck Prime Minister. I mean, I suppose, I'm trying to think through, I would have thought he would have gone by now. I thought he was probably going to go early this week. But if you're a Labour Party plotter, I suppose you might take the view that you wait until a potentially disastrous by-election result, or potentially wait until May. But I would have thought that they would want him clearly and unambiguously on the way out before those May elections, even if he's still serving out his last few days in office.
Yeah, but doesn't it show you how craven the Labour government is? Because they care more about sort of, the appearance of clinging on to power than they actually do about running the country. I mean, he's been saying ever since he was Prime Minister, country first, party second, while doing the exact opposite. He's clearly clinging on for his own self-aggrandizement and his own vanity. And when he said the other day, I will not walk away from the responsibility that you've given me for change in this country. And it's like, yeah, well, stop changing it, because you changed it for the bleeding worst.
Yeah, but I mean, also extraordinary for a government with such a majority. What's their working majority? 160 or so in Parliament. That actually he can get very little done. He can make prime ministerial appointments and he can fire people. But I mean, look at the complete shambles of his policy agenda over the past year or so. And put aside whether you like his policies, which I don't think many people do, or you're opposed to them. That's not the point. He can't get anything passed. Changes to the winter fuel allowance, U-turn, farmers' tax, partial U-turn. He can't really get anything at all done because his backbenchers won't allow it. So even if there was some Starmer vision of Britain, even if there was a philosophy called Starmerism, none of it would get passed because he simply cannot control his backbenchers. And that is unbelievable. It would be sort of acceptable if he had a tiny majority and a handful, half a dozen or so Labour MPs could derail him, but he's supposed to have a majority so big that he can do what he wants. But he finds himself in a position where I don't think anything involving any controversy at all can he get through the Houses of Parliament. Absolutely extraordinary. So we've got a lame duck government, despite the fact that it has a landslide and has only been in office for 18 months. That's the poverty of leadership that we're witnessing.
Yeah, and we've got a pretty lame duck economy by the looks of things. I mean, the figures are out this morning. Latest growth figures belie another quarter of wasted opportunity. The UK GDP rising by a minimal 0.1% for the second quarter in a row. Also, GDP per capita is actually down for the second quarter in a row. So literally nothing going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you say, I think on a fair measurement of the statistics, rather than just looking at the size of the economy, I think you should look at the size of the economy and divide it by the population. If that was your metric, we're in recession. We've now had 2 consecutive quarters of, on a per capita basis, on a per person basis, we are getting poorer in Britain, and it's really on a per person basis that people care about. Obviously, if you suddenly have another 10 million people, for sake of argument, entering Britain, GDP would go up. There'd be more activity, but it doesn't necessarily mean that on average each of us would be richer. In fact, we'd almost certainly each of us be poorer. So everybody's in their own personal recession, basically.
Yeah.
Well, not everybody. Some people are doing okay, but on average, each of us is in our own personal recession. We are slowly going backwards, and that is a complete disaster because it means tax receipts will continue to stay pretty flat and stagnant. Any more efforts to raise tax, I think, in virtually any area now will not raise more revenues because it will just kill off businesses and disincentivize work. We are now in a real doom loop, and there seems to be no plan or idea about how we escape it. So at best, Mike, we're going to muddle along for the next year, 2 or 3, but at worst, things could take a real turn downwards, and I fear that might yet happen.
Well, that is the problem, isn't it? There's no real wiggle room. Now, I know you're a big football fan, so I'm going to come to you with a slightly different sort of subject this morning. I don't know whether you've been following it, but the Eni Aluko story has kind of taken off in a big way. This is, of course, the female footballer and pundit now who likened herself to Wayne Rooney the other day and said she was a bit really like him in terms of her talent. She's also said that she thought Ian Wright should have given up some of the jobs that he had in order to give her more work. She had a bit of a run-in with Simon Jordan over at Talk Sport the other day. Have a look at this.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. And he's saying, well, why not have Wright pitch side or Anua pitch side, the men pitch side? And any alongside Karen Carney in studio as a high-profile
not just
pundit.
Me, any
or
three
not
women.
just you.
I want to make that clear because I don't have any skin in the game.
The
right?
2 high-profile women.
Yeah.
In studio as pundits for that game.
I don't think that's particularly controversial. I think women's sport should be patronised and should be championed through women, specifically women's football. I also think the same applies in men's sport. I think that the women's expertise. I think there's nothing wrong with women hosts. It depends what you look for from a pundit. I think we live in a society now where there's far too many people that don't have the experience, don't have the substance, don't have the gravitas, don't know what they're talking about, masquerading as experts. And with due respect to women's involvement in men's football, I think they have zero expertise in men's football. I think they can talk about tactics, but the 2 games are vastly different. The speed, the scale, the size, the pressure, the expectation, the physicality, they are vastly different games.
But you were quite outspoken about Eni yesterday.
In conjunction
and you were questioning Eni's quality as a pundit.
Because in my view, for what my view is worth, I listened to the observations. I've encountered Eni in short form, in long form. We've had a conversation about something to do with the commerciality of football, which I thought Eni talked with no commercial sense. And that's my opinion. She probably disagrees. I've seen her in long form, in podcasts, talking about various things, specifically with Andrew Gold, where she's ideologically aligned with a perspective that overrepresentation is based upon merit and underrepresentation is based upon structural racism, and I find that a difficult circle to square. As far as expertise is concerned, when I listen to her as a pundit and the times that I've listened to her, I don't think that she's particularly enlightening or illuminating or engaging or charismatic or sometimes comes across particularly likable. But that's my view. And some people have the same view about me. And my view of punditry is when I listen to a pundit, whoever that pundit might be, whatever they may be, whether it's male, female, black, white, yellow, green, it's do I learn something from them? Do they engage me? Do I find them interesting and entertaining? And do they merit my attention? And that's my response to the reasons why I was saying the things I said.
He's sitting right beside you.
Yeah, I you know.
So, Mark, I mean, it's fascinating. I was saying the other day, you know, because these are things you can't say. I mean, Simon Jordan, I think, is a great guy. I think he's a really good pundit. I think he's very interesting, very challenging. But what he won't be able to say on TalkSport is that women's football isn't very good, right? And actually, nobody really in their right mind who is a football fan would like watching it. And the people who do say they like watching it are kind of saying it because they think it's the right thing to say.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of virtue signalling about it, Mike. I'm football nuts. I've occasionally watched the women's game. It doesn't interest me particularly, probably because I've got so attuned to the kind of speed and pace of men's football that it looks like you're watching something completely different. But look, I've got no problem with, you know, women playing football. The women's England team have done very well compared to the men's England team recently, for example. But the key point about Simon Jordan is the punditry's got to be based on merit, right? And I have seen any punditry, and I agree with Simon Jordan. I just don't find it very interesting. And that's nothing to do with whether she's black or female. It might be, as Simon says, that you have a huge advantage if you've actually played the men's game and are commenting on the men's game, because you have much more of a sense of, you know, what it's like to take a tumble, how exhausted you're feeling after 80 minutes of the match, and all of the rest of it. So it might be that you get more insight from people who've been professional footballers or professional managers. But I'd be fine with, you know, journalists. I think we don't use them enough, actually, as football pundits rather than just ex-players. But it's got to be based on merit. I'm absolutely with Simon Jordan. Have you said something about the match or a particular period of play or the tactics leading up to a goal or stopping a goal that enlightens me as a football fan as I'm watching it? That's what the measurement's got to be. And it seems to me increasingly that that's not what the broadcasters are putting forward. What they're determined to have is the right balance of black, white, and male and female in the studio and by the side of the pitch. Well, viewers don't care about that. I don't care if they're all white, all black, all tall, or short. Just tell me something interesting about the game. And we've lost sight of that in order to parade identity politics. It's not really based on merit. It's based on colour and gender. And football fans care about football. They don't care about identity politics as part of punditry.
But of course, it's happened in rugby as well. It's happened in other sports too. But, you know, interestingly enough, Eni Aluko, after that sort of little speech by Simon Jordan, more or less justified her position by saying, well, the fact that I've been hired by lots of big broadcasting companies proves that I'm good at what I do. Which, of course, completely misses the point, because the reason they've hired her is because of DEI, because of the fact that they think they should have a woman, and even better, a black woman, to talk about football.
That's got to be the suspicion, hasn't it? I mean, I haven't seen all the documents, you know, leading up to the decision to appoint her. As I say, I'm with Simon Jordan on this. My own personal opinion is I don't find her a remotely engaging pundit. I'm afraid if the BBC or Sky Sports or anybody else can adduce audience figures showing that she's monumentally popular with a huge tranche of the audience who find her insights absolutely fascinating, I stand to be corrected. I would be surprised if that's the case, however. So the suspicion is that it's not based on merit. If it really is based on merit, and the broadcasters can show that she is the most fantastically popular pundit, you know, driving audience figures upwards. When audiences are asked, who's your favourite pundit, what was your best insight, they're not saying Jamie Carragher or Simon Jordan, they're saying her. Well, fair enough. But I have to say I'm sceptical that such data exists. And I think this is much, much more about DEI balance, which seems to obsess the broadcasters, but I would hazard a guess is of no interest at all to anything but a tiny, tiny fraction of the audience.
Yeah, I think that's right. Mark, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for spending some time with us. Mark Littlewood, there, economist and member of Popular Conservatism, of course. Maybe I'm doing him a disservice, kind of founder of that, actually. Coming up, we've got much more to do. We're going to be speaking with Stella O'Malley, who's the founder of Gen Spect. She's going to join us to talk about her meeting yesterday with MPs in Parliament and what actually happened there. A couple of stories that we'll mention to her, including, of course, the one about how women have been told basically that trans women will be able to use toilets in workplaces probably for the rest of time because the Labour government think it's too difficult to actually legislate for. Another nice super chat coming in from Simon there. Thank you for that, Simon. Many more of you to talk to. Let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, all. Here's the news with me, Edward Hughes. Oh, brilliant. Another glorious day in the United Kingdom on February 12th, 2026. Let's recap the absolute masterclass in national vibes, shall we? First up, billionaire Sir Jim Ratcliffe, you know, the bloke who owns a chunk of Manchester United and apparently fancies himself a geopolitical poet, has declared that the UK has been colonised by immigrants, and it's all costing far too much money. Shocking revelation from the man who's spent billions on footballers while the rest of us queue for NHS appointments. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, in a rare display of spine, demanded an apology because the comments were, wait for it, offensive and wrong. Groundbreaking stuff, truly shaking the foundations of discourse. Meanwhile, the royal adjacent soap opera rolls on. Fresh Epstein file drips reveal Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, rang up the late sex offender while he was in jail for advice on her bankruptcy. Because when you're drowning in debt, who better to call than Geoffrey? Death is better, she apparently reckoned at one point. Classy. And of course, Prince Andrew's name is floating around again like a bad smell that just won't leave the corridor. The palace is definitely searching files, any day now I'm sure. Over in London, counter-terror police are investigating a stabbing of 2 teenage boys at a North London school. The suspect's a former pupil who apparently popped by a mosque beforehand, because nothing says routine school day like that combo. Knife crime initiatives are being rushed forward so kids get support earlier. How novel. Elsewhere, snow and ice warnings because the weather's decided relentless rain wasn't humiliating enough. Housing market showing tentative signs of recovery. Translation, still unaffordable but slightly less apocalyptic. Scottish rocket startup on the brink of collapse despite £26 million of taxpayer cash. Because why not flush more money into space dreams while we can't afford GPs in the Lake District? And just for flavour, laughing gas canisters exploding at waste centres hundreds of times a week. Peak Britain. Even the bins are trying to take us out. So yeah, business as usual. Immigrants colonising us. Royals phoning pedos for financial tips. Kids stabbing each other. Weather trying to kill us. And billionaires complaining about money. What a time to be alive. God save the king. Or at least the branding. Because apparently we're now just UK government instead of His Majesty's. Priorities, people. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, tigers.
Thank you very much indeed. Edward Hughes there with the news. Lots of super chats coming in. Lord Vader in Malaysia says, great show, Mike, keep it coming. And he sent us some money, but I don't know what it is. It's MYR, which might be Malaysian ringgits, I'm told. Oh, I want to listen to you, Mr. Currency expert. Very good. And we're going to talk now, we're coming up to Jamie Jenkins in a little while. We'll talk to him about the new GDP figures that have come out this morning. We'll also talk as well, of course, about the Manchester United owner, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who basically said that Britain has been colonised by immigrants who are costing too much money, which everybody agrees with, but of course Keir Starmer says he should apologise for because it's offensive. Well, I don't think it is. Also, Orla Minahane's going to be here as well. Alan Mendoza, also to talk about a great many things over the course of time. One of the things we haven't mentioned yet is crime back on the agenda because Mick Jagger's girlfriend, or fiancée, I think actually, was attacked outside Annabelle's nightclub where somebody tried to mug her. And so another, thorn in the side for old Sadiq Khan, who keeps telling us how safe London is. Well, it isn't, I'm afraid. But let's talk now to Stella O'Malley. She's the founder of Gen Spect. She's joining us to talk about a meeting she had yesterday with MPs in Parliament, trying to figure out what it is that they want in terms of equality for women. Stella, very good morning to you.
Hi there.
Thanks very much for joining us. You were meant to meet Wes Streeting, I understand, but it sounds like he's probably a bit busy trying to save his own job, right?
Well, I know he's a very busy man. I suppose fairness, I was with Ciara Bell, who is, taking proceedings against Wes Streeting, and rightfully so. And so I can see why he would postpone the meeting.
Yeah. So you had a meeting then with some MPs. What happened exactly? Tell us.
Well, it was very interesting. Myself and Ciara Bell, as well as that James Esses, who are both, taking these legal proceedings. We met with people, MPs and other interested parties, to just discuss the issues around the puberty blockers ban and around the fact that there's going to be a puberty blockers trial. There's been £10 million funded for this trial. We already know that the outcomes will suggest that these people, 98% of these children, are going to go on to cross-sex hormones. And we know that their gender dysphoria won't dissipate. And instead they're going to medicalise on a false promise that they can become the opposite sex.
Right.
When it won't make them happier. And it will definitely create an awful lot of medical health challenges, but they're kids. And so they don't consenting to, they think it's going to give them this great new life.
Right. And what's the position with the law in that area at the moment? I mean, if you're, say, a parent of a child who wants to have this procedure sort of undertaken, do you have any rights as a parent to say no?
You have rights as a parent to say no. The problem is that when your child is desperately distressed, very vulnerable, very often autistic, the cultural pressure on the parents is quite extreme. And so what we need is policies in place where it's just not on the table. Why would we experiment on children?
Yeah.
And why would we offer children experimental medical interventions that the children really want? So imagine if these children had an eating disorder and they were being offered a medical intervention that was experimental. The eating disordered children would want it. The parents would be saying, stop offering this to my children. Don't offer my children, thank you very much. It's not good for them. And so I think it's fair to look to the parents. I think we have to look to the policymakers, the politicians, and mostly the clinicians, who should not be offering experimental interventions on children.
Yeah, I think that's the most worrying aspect of this story is the clinicians themselves, who really ought to know better and who, for reasons of ideology, have decided to abandon what they would have been taught at medical college, medical school, and are literally sort of sacrificing kids on the altar of, what they regard as the right thing to do.
It's mind-melting, to be honest. I'm a psychotherapist, and I founded GenSpect in 2021 to promote the concept that we can offer psychological approaches to these people. It's these children. Psychological distress is traditionally and conventionally healed with psychological treatment. Body modification, this is a new kind of 21st century swerve into extreme medical interventions that have no evidence base. While psychological treatment, yeah, I know it's long-winded, I know it's slow, I know I'm a psychotherapist for many years, I know it isn't foolproof, but it does offer some relief, and it's a lot better than stopping puberty so that the child's sexual awakening doesn't happen, and so that when they become an adult, they've never actually gone through puberty, and they go into a chemically induced adulthood of the opposite sex. This is something that we've never created before in life. We've never gone from childhood to stopping puberty to a chemically induced adulthood. We've never done that.
No.
And it's an extraordinarily strange chemical intervention. And we don't know the long-term outcomes, but we do know that it doesn't relieve distress in any long-term way. And we do know that psychological treatments, which is what we promote at GenSpect, has a conventional and established outcome.
Because you can't reverse the puberty blockers scenario, can you? Once you've not had puberty and you've gone through that period of your life without the onset of it, you can't suddenly reinvent it, can you?
Yeah, we created a memorandum of understanding on the importance of puberty in adolescence. It's an actual development of the human. And so you have to go through puberty to get through adulthood, you went through it, I went through it, and every single adult who's listening went through puberty. But this, for the first time ever, we're creating a concept where you can go as a child, stop puberty, do nothing for a few years, literally go into limbo, and then induce a chemical opposite sex adulthood. It's extraordinary. And don't forget, therefore, your natural reproductive organs are not awoken. Your biological reproductive organs are nothing. None of that is awoken. Instead, there's a chemically induced creation. It's extraordinarily kind of futuristic, but it's
Yeah.
happening with this
It's,
concept called
it's
puberty.
insane. Well, and so much around this whole area is insane. I mean, there's a story in the papers this morning about trans women who could be allowed to keep using female toilets at work for years because the Equalities Minister, who I think is Bridget Phillipson now, is she? No, possibly not. Maybe it is, yeah. Bridget Phillipson saying that basically forthcoming guidance does not cover workplaces. How does it not cover workplaces?
Well, you know, the guidance is clear enough insofar as we've had the Supreme Court judgment from For Women Scotland, where we established that a woman is a woman, and a woman is entitled, if we're going to have single sex provisions, that's women. That's not trans women. Trans women is another concept, which is a male who's identified as a female.
Yeah.
And that is well established. So like policies that are nebulous and policies that cover, you know, Section A but don't cover Section B are slightly irrelevant when you've got an actual court ruling that establishes same-sex, or not same-sex, single-sex provisions are single-sex provisions, and there is no doubt that what a woman is. We know what a woman is, we know what a man is. We should never have let this been brought into question. And now we've re-established that, you know, water is wet and that women are women. And so, therefore, all the policies in the world don't get around that fact. And I think we should absolutely be very clear on.
Yes. And so if you had been able to meet Wes Streeting yesterday, what would you have told him?
I would have told him that he's going to make a political mistake if he allows this puberty blocker trial to go ahead. It's going to be a legacy that he will try to get away from for the rest of his life. He knows it's a mistake. Everybody who knows anything about this subject, if you studied it in any detail, you'll think this particular trial, it's going on for 2 years. It's too short. We don't know what it's going to produce, but we do know it's going to produce very unreliable evidence because it's only 2 years. So 2 years after a child has had their puberty blocks, it's irrelevant. I don't care how they feel. It's the long-term evidence that we need. 2,000 children have already been put on puberty blockers in Britain in the last 15 years. Those children need to be chased up, followed up, figured out over the last 15 years. How are you getting on? How is the fact that your infertility has now kicked in? How is your sexual impairment? How is life without a functioning sex life, without fertility, and with all these health complications? How are you doing? That's what we need to know. We don't need to block more children's puberty. We've done it. Now we need to know the outcomes of those children.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. And great, sterling work you're doing, Stella. So thank you very much indeed for joining us. Stella O'Malley there from Gen Spect talking to us about a very important subject and something that I think most parents would be absolutely horrified by if they knew what was actually going on with this puberty blockers business. Now, we're going to speak to Jamie Jenkins shortly. We're going to talk about the new GDP figures that have just come out, showing yet again not very much growth, I'm afraid, in the economy. But there's a lot of birthdays apparently today. And so we're going to do a few of those. Lynn says this: Mike, give me a shout out. It's my birthday today. Happy birthday, Lynn, and welcome to the show. Thank you very much indeed. Banana says, my birthday too. I'm 60. Faints. How did that happen? Well, lucky old you. I mean, I haven't seen that number for quite some time. Plonk, 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 says Viking, Lord Viking, is what I'm looking forward to, Mike. When is Mr. Fizz and the Wine coming on? Well, you know, we're actually recording it, I think, today. Is that right, Pooch? Yeah. And we're going to put it out on Saturday. At 7 o'clock. So we're sort of experimenting a little bit with some of the stuff we're doing because, yes, it's good to do it live, but it's also good to put it out sort of at an appointed hour, if you like. So I'm not sure if have we got the stuff that's coming on, but we don't need to do it today, do we? I mean, we could. Charlotte, when is the merch coming, says Cindy. There is some merch on its way. Can I say this? Yeah. There you go. Here's some Jean Serra Carver Bouquet Semi Secco. That's hard to say that. Yeah. $6.75. Crikey, that's cheap, isn't it? This is an age-restricted product. Really. So we're having some of that, I think, which is like, it looks like a Prosecco. On the merch front, we're going to have some bumper stickers coming our way soon. And so we'll explain to you how you can get your hands on them, because we're going to try and make it as easy as possible. Because one of the things that I know from doing this in the past is that you can get yourself all caught up with, posting things off to people and all the rest of it. So we're going to have a plan, which we will explain to you at some point when we get the bumper stickers, and we'll get them out to anyone who wants one, basically, and it will be for free, which I think is not a bad deal, to be honest. And then you can stick a bumper sticker on the back of your car, on the back of your motorcycle, on the back of your tractor, on the back of your lorry, back of your van. We had a great one, actually, when I was over at my previous employer, when I think somebody stuck one on their backpack, and they just walk around with it on. Which was kind of interesting. Backside, no. You can stick it on your backside if you want, but I mean, obviously it'd come out in the wash. It's probably not a great idea. We've got lots more to do. We've got some really, really interesting clips to play you. We've got David Davis, we've got Jacob Rees-Mogg. You've already seen Nigel Farage on oat milk, because that's one of my favourite stories of the day. The fact that the Supreme Court has ruled that oat milk cannot any longer be called milk, because it's not milk. I don't know why. Why would you have to go to court to prove that? It's really ridiculous. It's a bit like poor old Keir Starmer only understanding what a woman was when the Supreme Court ruled that it was somebody without a penis. And he kind of then was able to understand it and go, right, I can explain. Yeah, well done. Thanks very much indeed. It must be very confusing being married to him, is all I know. Let's talk to Jamie Jenkins, our favourite statistician who is here in Welsh Wales. Very good morning to you, Jamie.
Morning, Mike. I suppose you got me on because you couldn't get Rachel Reeves on this morning, I suppose, to talk about the economic figures. Is that right?
She's turned us down again, yeah, I'm afraid. I don't think anyone's told her. I think what happens with Rachel Reeves is she goes into a sort of padded cell every night, and they only let her out every now and again when they want to tell her something that she's not going to be too disappointed with. So once again this morning, she'll feel probably as though the growth that she keeps telling us we're going to see isn't coming.
No, I've seen her. I think one of those statements. She must be a robot, Mike, because I think she's come out this morning, put a statement out saying they're still on the right economic plan, I think is what they were saying. And yeah, what economic? It depends what the plan is, I suppose, Mike. If the plan is to destroy the UK, they are on the right economic plan. But she's talking about interest rates keep coming down under this Labour government. Well, that's bugger all to do with the UK Labour government. That's pretty much to do just with the global economic factors in the US have been cutting interest rates. I don't think Reeves has been pushing those down over there as well. And she keeps talking about the fact that inflation's coming down. Well, it's still higher than some comparable years. So what is happening with the figures, Mike? So what we've had is every month we get the GDP figures. So GDP is pretty much when you add up all of the goods and services, the value of all the goods and services in the economy. That is what we class as GDP, and it's produced by the ONS where I used to work, and it gives you the best barometer as to how much kind of growth in the economy is, because obviously if you want to get increased living standards, you need to increase the economy, in part because the population's going up. So if you've got more people, and we get told, don't we, that immigration is good for the economy, well, we're not seeing the growth in the economy. And actually you was talking with Mark earlier, Mike, that if you compare the latest size of the economy in relation to the number of people in the economy, that's actually been going down. So that's a good indicator that on average, people in the UK are getting poorer. And over the last 6 months, Mike, the GDP figures haven't moved at all compared December to June. So when she says she's on the right economic plan, I suppose if she was the pilot of a plane, Mike, we're not having takeoff. The plane is stuck on the runway, going straight in, crashing at the end of the runway, I think.
Exactly right. And I mean, immigration being good for the economy certainly doesn't work for the boss of Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who's come out yesterday and basically said that we've been colonised by immigration, which has caused all sorts of problems, and it's costing us too much money, and there's too many people with benefits. And Keir Starmer, instead of agreeing with him, which he should have done, has told him he should apologise because he said something offensive.
Oh, yeah, that was bizarre. So why should Jim Ratcliffe have to apologise for his own opinion? Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Everybody's entitled to free speech. But he's just saying what a lot of people agree with. That is in part, Mike, why Nigel Farage and Reform have been kind of growing in the polls, because Farage has been saying exactly what Sir Jim Ratcliffe is saying. And obviously Starmer, the thing with politics, Mike, politics is all about opinion. and the public can listen to Starmer, they can listen to Radcliffe, they can listen to Farage, Kemi Badenoch, and they'll decide which one of these people do I agree with most, and I'll put my support and weight behind them. That is pretty much politics. No, the facts are that we've had significant immigration. We had the Boris wave of immigration. It's quite clear all these small boat migrants and the asylum system doesn't add to the economy. In fact, it takes away from the economy, because that's £5 billion, for example, that isn't going on frontline services. They're going on hotels and running the asylum system. So to come out and ask him to apologise is quite an extraordinary intervention. I do wonder if when I saw that, Mike, if Keir Starmer's actual X account, and I'm sure he's posted it somewhere, has he been hacked? Pretty much, has he been hacked, Mike?
You might well ask. I mean, the thing is, he just gets everything wrong, and at the moment, he's getting it even more wrong than he normally does. But yeah, I mean, clearly, Jim Ratcliffe's got his view, and as I say, an awful lot of people agree with him and agree with reform, and don't agree with Keir Starmer, who's now, by some chalk, the most hated Prime Minister that's ever existed, right? And I'm just checking Rachel Reeves's X account, because I thought I should. 2 days ago was the last time she put anything on there. Rebuilding Britain takes time, says Richard III, but thanks to the decisions we've made, NHS waiting lists are falling, which is a lie. Inflation is falling, also a lie. Interest rates are falling, because the Bank of England are kind of helping them out. The conditions for the economy to grow are there. With Keir as our Prime Minister, we are turning the country around. Absolute cobblers.
Yeah, and all the cabinet came out, didn't they?
They're turning it around and bending it over, is what they're doing.
Yeah, no, totally, Mike. So all the cabinet came out a couple of years ago, and one of the things that I've written on my Substack, which people can get over on statsjamie.co.uk this week, is just to remind people, Mike, of the mandate that Starmer actually had. So it wasn't basically, they're all coming out that Starmer was voted in 2024. He has a clear mandate for the people. But the facts are, Jeremy Corbyn, when he was the Labour leader, had more, was more popular than Keir Starmer. He had 560,000 fewer people voted for Starmer, Mike, in 2024 than what voted for Jeremy Corbyn. The only reason he got in, pretty much, was the failed experiment of Rishi Sunak and the collapse of the Tory party, because they lost 7 million votes. Many people were fed up of the Uni party as well, Mike. So 3.2 million fewer people voted in 2024 in total than what they voted in 2019. So the Tory vote had collapsed. And what that meant is, where Corbyn, I think, got just over 202 seats Corbyn got, Mike. Starmer got more than double the amount of seats with fewer votes, because the Tory vote did collapse. So there's no clear mandate. And then when they got this mandate, they started obviously trying to attack the pensioners with the winter fuel allowance, and digital ID was put on the mandate, where there was nothing on that in the manifesto. And jury trials, we could probably go on till 9:30 talking about all the U-turns that the government's done. Like, the only U-turn we need is the economy. We need the economy to start turning around for people to feel richer. And Rachel Reeves, Richard III, Mike, this is literally a car crash. And you can't sack anybody. You talked just now about West Street. You can't sack anybody. I'm assuming all he's done a few days ago is said to the cabinet, if you don't back me today, I'm not going to sack you. I'm going to call a general election, and you're all going to lose your jobs anyway.
Yeah,
that's what's gone.
I mean, that's how low he's sunk. That basically that is the last bastion that he can sort of cling on to, is that, threatening people with the sack because he knows that they would lose the election, which is pretty awful stuff. We got a clip actually from Jacob Rees-Mogg talking about Starmer being one of the most unlucky politicians ever. Have a look.
It was famously said that Napoleon wanted lucky generals. The Prime Minister seems to be one of the unluckiest men alive in terms of those he appoints. It's amazing how many of them come unstuck because of sleaze. And at what point do you start saying that it's not the appointed, but the appointer who lacks such fundamental judgment that he must take the blame? There's the old saying about a bad workman blames his tools. Does a son of a toolmaker blame his tools when he appoints the wrong people, rather than recognising that it's his fault? I thought it would be interesting to go through some of these names, the people he's appointed, and some of the ones who, not tainted by sleaze, have simply not proved up to the job, because he's got through a very large number of people in a pretty short space of time. So do you remember Louise Haigh? Louise Haigh he appointed to be Secretary of State for Transport, in charge of roads and rail and all those sorts of things. She had to resign because it turned out she'd been found guilty of fraud when she was younger, before she became a Member of Parliament. Fraud is a pretty serious crime. It's not just one of those things that you say it's youthful inexperience. So what went wrong with the vetting? Did nobody ask her? Were they aware but didn't care? Or did they just think that nobody minds anymore about criminality? Tulip Siddiq. Perhaps Tulip Siddiq has been harshly treated because she was, after all, the anti-corruption minister in the Treasury, and a political change in Bangladesh meant that her family came under the microscope concerning allegations of corruption. And the proof against her is in Bangladesh, not in this country. And I'm not sure that I would trust politically motivated prosecutions of that kind. Nonetheless,
Jacob Rees-Mogg there making perfect sense, saying that Keir Starmer is one of the unluckiest generals and unluckiest politicians alive. I've got great news, by the way, for everybody. Jacob Rees-Mogg's coming in the studio tomorrow to talk to us, so that'll be fantastic, because we like to hear from him. He's very, very sensible. But he's right, isn't he? You know, Starmer just gets everything wrong. Every time he gets an opportunity to do the right thing, he does the exact opposite and does the wrong thing.
No, Mike, and you played the clip, I think, earlier as well, in Prime Minister's questions yesterday, where he was attacking, I think, Ed Davey over austerity. This Prime Minister's questions needs rebranding, Mike, because he never answers anything that he's asked, does he, pretty much? And yeah, he must be unlucky, because they seem to have this knack of kind of appointing people to the Lords that have got some kind of sex scandal involving, you know, what is going on, and his judgment's clearly shot. And the big attack, when they come in, they said that we'll be a clean government. They were attacking Boris Johnson all of the time, and they said this is going to be a new broom, everything's going to be different. And rather than probably the media, obviously you're talking about it now, but rather than the media focusing pretty much on, what do people really care about? They care about living standards. They care about jobs. Jobs are going down. Living standards are going down. Things aren't going great in the economy. This is a good smokescreen, all of this talk that's going on with Mandelson and other things, because we're not going to be talking specifically about the failures of the government themselves. So, yeah, I think the unlucky people really, Mike, are basically the British public. And if there were a general election tomorrow, Starmer will be out on his year, and that's why he's hanging on, Mike. You've called a general election, I think, for the last year early. This is one thing I'll have to disagree with you on, Mike. I just can't see why the Labour Party would have a general election, unless Starmer is spiteful to his backbenchers to say, well, if you're going to get rid of me, I'm going to get rid of you as well. That's the only thing I can see, pretty much.
Yeah, except my feeling is based more on the fact that the economy will collapse to such an extent that they'll have to have a general election, because they'll literally have nowhere to go, because they'll lose the confidence of the Bank of England, who are sort of propping them up at the moment, because they're ideologically kind of in alignment with the Labour government, if you like. They wouldn't have propped up Liz Truss, but they've done a lot more damage to the economy than Liz Truss. We're now borrowing so much money that even the IMF can't afford to bail us out. That's how bad it is. And also, this guy is meant to have been the boss of the Crown Prosecution Service, right? He's meant to have been the chief prosecutor of bad guys in this country. And as people are pointing out, he's one of the most gullible idiots that anyone has ever seen, because apparently he was misled not just by Peter Mandelson, who lied to him, he was also misled by Lord Doyle when he asked him, how friendly are you with this paedophile that you've been campaigning for? Oh, not very friendly. Fine, okay, then off you go. I mean, as I said, he's also been sending £100 million to, King Johnny Odinga in Rhodesia, or in Zimbabwe rather, who said, please send me some money and I'll send it straight back to your bank account. I mean, that's how gullible he is.
Totally, Mike. What was the point of the vetting process if Starmer can just say, I had a pint with my mate in the pub last night. He said there's nothing to see there, so stick him in charge anyway. That is the bloody point of having a vetting process to check on.
I mean, he might as well be hiring Fred West to do his patio, he's a really good builder. I said, have you murdered anyone? No, absolutely not. Absolute rubbish. Yeah, not true.
Oh, Mike, if he was advising you, you wouldn't have Edward Hughes doing the news. You'd have Hugh Edwards doing the news, because he said, all that stuff to the BBC. Oh, there's all rubbish. Yeah, absolute mental, Mike. And things. So bring it back just before we finish, I suppose, to those economic figures this morning. People watching. We basically, the reason we are in the position is that the choices of the UK government is why we've got it. They've made those choices to increase taxes. The jobs tax, so I'll be on with you next week, Mike. I think we get the borrowing figures next week. We also get the latest round of employment figures as well. So I'm expecting to be discussing with you more borrowing, more job cuts, hospitality continue. The only thing that's growing, Mike, which is great for you, is your subscribers to your Substack and your YouTube channel. If they put those into the economic figures, we might start getting a bit of a turnaround. So keep up the good work.
Very well said. What a top man.
That's the only growth I'm seeing at the moment.
Jamie, thank you very much indeed. He's absolutely right, of course, because we are literally, I think, in probably about the next 4 or 5 hours, going to cross over into the plus 7 million views on the channel. We're already, I think, at 135 or 136,000 subscribers, so keep that coming on as well. And he's absolutely right. It's the only thing that's growing around here. Certainly nothing that old Keir Starmer touches is going anywhere in the right direction. It's shrinking faster than, him in the shower without wishing to get too graphic, if you know what I mean. Lord Vader in Malaysia sent us some more ringgits, is it?
Yeah.
I have no idea how much that is, but thank you, Lord Vader. Very kind of you. Donald McLeod, keenly watching this morning, has just commented on a picture I put in for Heron of the Day.
You do Heron of the Day now.
He says it's a crane.
Let's do Heron of the Day.
I can't believe it. The guy that sent us a crane, masquerading as a heron, is now identifying my Heron of the Day as a crane. I don't know if you can get it up there, can you? Yeah, that's... 35 even. There it is. Now, one of the many resident herons in Battersea Park, says Karen. Donald McLeod's claiming it's not a heron because it doesn't have an S-shaped neck, right? Let's have a look at that heron over there, the crane, which also doesn't have an S-shaped neck. But Donald thinks that's a heron. I don't know. We could be doing this all day. There's so much more to do, and we're going to talk to Orla Minahan in a minute from the Pink Ladies organisation, also a Reform candidate over in Essex. She'll have plenty to say, I'm sure, about the state of our nation, the state of formerly Prince Andrew, and his now police investigation that's going on. And what about Lord Doyle? Who backed a sex offender and was then put into the House of Lords by Keir Starmer, who seems to think that paedophiles and people who are friends with paedophiles are not as bad as people who have parties in Downing Street. Extraordinary. Let's get the news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, all. Here's the news with me, Edward Hughes. Oh, brilliant. Another glorious day in the United Kingdom on February 12th, 2026. Let's recap the absolute masterclass in national vibes, shall we? First up, billionaire Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the bloke who owns a chunk of Manchester United and apparently fancies himself a geopolitical poet, has declared that the UK has been colonised by immigrants, and it's all costing far too much money. Shocking revelation from the man who's spent billions on footballers while the rest of us queue for NHS appointments. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, in a rare display of spine, demanded an apology because the comments were, wait for it, offensive and wrong. Groundbreaking stuff, truly shaking the foundations of discourse. Meanwhile, the royal adjacent soap opera rolls on. Fresh Epstein file drips reveal Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, rang up the late sex offender while he was in jail for advice on her bankruptcy. Because when you're drowning in debt, who better to call than Geoffrey? Death is better, she apparently reckoned at one point. Classy. And of course, Prince Andrew's name is floating around again like a bad smell that just won't leave the corridor. The palace is definitely searching files, any day now I'm sure. Over in London, counter-terror police are investigating a stabbing of 2 teenage boys at a North London school. The suspect's a former pupil who apparently popped by a mosque beforehand, because nothing says routine school day like that combo. Knife crime initiatives are being rushed forward so kids get support earlier. How novel. Elsewhere, snow and ice warnings because the weather's decided relentless rain wasn't humiliating enough. Housing market showing tentative signs of recovery. Translation, still unaffordable but slightly less apocalyptic. Scottish rocket startup on the brink of collapse despite £26 million of taxpayer cash. Because why not flush more money into space dreams while we can't afford GPs in the Lake District? And just for flavour, laughing gas canisters exploding at waste centres hundreds of times a week. Peak Britain. Even the bins are trying to take us out. So yeah, business as usual. Immigrants colonising us. royals phoning pedos for financial tips, kids stabbing each other, weather trying to kill us, and billionaires complaining about money. What a time to be alive. God save the king, or at least the branding, because apparently we're now just UK government instead of His Majesty's. Priorities, people. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, tigers.
He's going on a bit today, isn't he? Old Edward Hughes? I don't know. Also, he mentioned there is a space flight, I think, going on at some point soon. Somebody said to me yesterday you should get a space expert on. And I thought, and we'll have some news about this actually coming next week, which is more great news. Lewis MacLeod, who does a fantastic impersonation of, what's his face? Look at the sky. What's that guy's name?
Brian Cox.
Brian Cox, yeah. Not the really objectionable Scottish actor, but the former member of D-Ream. Things can only get better. Remember he wrote that. And he does all these shows on TV about space. Look at the sky. It's beautiful, isn't it? And that's how he talks, like that. Anyway, we've got so much going on today. We haven't even got to my Meltdown yet, which we're about to do. And we haven't actually got to Plank of the Day yet, which we will do. We've got so much news in the papers. I mean, police assessing Andrew's leaks to Epstein is what it says on the front page of the Times. Police examining Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein have spoken to prosecutors and are assessing whether there is a case for misconduct in public office. And that tends to be surrounding the issue of whether he gave away trade secrets to Epstein when he passed him emails that he was receiving, which were confidential government emails about trade, within 5 minutes of getting them. But also, more importantly, the front page of The Sun says, credit CAD, royal exclusive, the Queen, Philip and Charles loaned Andrew 12 million quid to pay off Virginia Giuffre, and he hasn't paid back a penny. And we're going to talk now to one of our favourite women, Orla Minahane, of course, who is with the Pink Ladies over there in lovely Essex, and also a potential reform candidate. Orla, very good morning to you.
Morning, how are you?
Very well indeed. I know we're going to talk about a couple of big stories this week, like the Rhiannon White sentencing of the asylum seeker, or as they call him in the BBC, but scumbag as I prefer. But let me just ask you a little bit about Andrew, because I mean, I don't know what you think about this, but I feel like the monarchy is kind of in a bit of jeopardy here, because you've got King Charles effectively enabling Andrew to pay off somebody he had sex with who was underage. I mean, I know it's his own money, but if you do that, you're kind of forgiving the person who's giving the money to the girl, are you not? And are you not sort of protecting him?
Yeah. So I think they are in a bit of a mess, to be honest. And I think that the money, when the Queen was alive, God rest her soul, I think that she would have done anything to protect the brand, the royal brand. Yeah. So I would imagine that there was a lot of, arguments and gnawing of teeth, etc., in Windsor, where they decided that they would pay Virginia off to try and keep her quiet. So silencing money. And at one point in history, that would have worked.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
now that doesn't work anymore. Since the Queen's passing, I don't think Charles has been hard enough on Andrew. And certainly Fergie either. I think that he should absolutely cut all ties. I know he's lost his title, etc., but just completely, completely cut him off. Totally. He has to. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Charles. I think he's quite weak. I think that he has failed to live up to the legacy of the Queen. And I'm a big royalist. I don't know if you can see in the background, but I've got a picture of the Queen here. But I think that I don't think he has lived up to the expectations that everybody had of him. And I think the best thing that can happen is actually William and Kate step in. I'm a big fan of Kate and William. I think they're fantastic ambassadors. They seem lovely and normal. They've got, a moral compass, it would seem. Exactly what we need. I mean, ultimately, Charles is the head of the church.
Yeah.
When does he ever stand up for British and Christian values?
Right.
He's busy bowing down to Islam. And that is not what we expect from our monarch.
No.
So, you know, I think that there are many elements here. The Andrew thing is just not even worth talking about. The man is an absolute scumbag, an entitled scumbag who should be cut off. And I hope he gets arrested and put away for a very long time. I think Fergie needs to be as well, because she's just an absolute nightmare. I feel sorry for the girls. I think that they've probably, you know, you can't choose your parents, can you? But ultimately, I think that it needs to now be a situation where Kate and William save the royal family.
Yes, I think you're right. Because, you know, like I say, I think it's quite a serious problem for the king, the head of the royal family, the monarch of this country, to be paying effectively hush money to a woman who's got a complaint against a member of your family for, you know, effectively statutory rape.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, like as I said, I think that in years ago, so how long's the Queen been dead? A few years now.
Yeah.
Maybe 20 years ago, you know, 30, that scandal, you could have bought your way out of that scandal, because the only kind of media would have been the press.
Yeah.
So you could silence it. You can't silence anything anymore because of social media, because of the way the world is. So everything is going to come out one way or another. So the best thing you could do in any situation is just hold your hands up and say, I'm out of this. I'm going to cut myself off from him. But unfortunately, when the Queen was alive, and I know it's well documented that she was his favourite, or he was her favourite, she'd have done anything to protect her child. And at the end of the day, she was a mother. Would any mother protect their child? I think I'd like to think that I would. The only thing I would draw the line at is if my son, God forbid, did anything as hideous as rape, sexual assault, then I'd cut him off.
Right, exactly right. And speaking of like moral compasses, what the hell is going on inside the Labour Party? You know, they've got, we learned today, not because we didn't know before, but Harry Cole put out a piece that he wrote back in 2024 about Nick Brown, a man who was suspended from the Labour Party because of some very serious sexual allegations. They didn't tell the police, right, about the allegations, and he worked and continued to work as an MP and continued to pick up his £86,000 salary for a good year or more. We've now got evidence that Starmer knowingly promoted this guy, Lord Doyle, to the House of Lords, even though he was told by a piece that ran in the Sunday Times that he was a paedophile, or he had supported a paedophile rather, a man who had pictures, indecent pictures of children, right? Plus all the Mandelson stuff. I mean, and yesterday I thought it was really, really disgusting to watch the Prime Minister of this country making out that what Boris Johnson did by having a bit of cake and a glass of wine on his birthday was as bad. I mean, what is he on?
I don't know. I mean, for me, and I'm sure most decent human beings in this country, any kind of sexual abuse, sexual assault, paedophilia is the most disgusting and most vile of crimes. There should be zero tolerance. And if you are in a position of power or authority in this country, and there is a sniff of any wrongdoing or anything that is morally corrupt, that should be it. You know, I am so fed up with MPs and police and councillors being caught up in smut and sleaze and sexual abuse. It is immoral, and I cannot understand how we are in a situation where we have people in the House of Lords and House of Commons who have committed crimes against our most vulnerable people. It is absolutely outrageous. And what angered me so much yesterday with PMQs, Keir Starmer stood up when questioned about the rape gang inquiry. He said, myself alongside the Minister for Safeguarding have introduced the most effective strategy for the protection of women and girls. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
You know, what on earth are you talking about? He is a liar. He is disingenuous. I don't actually know whether he is a psychopath or just so out of his depth that he believes some of the stuff that he's been told. Jess Phillips has never, ever contacted one of the people that were raped, not one of the parents or the family members of Rhiannon White, who was murdered. It is just absolutely shocking that these people are in the positions that they're in. And we have got to have a complete reset of the political landscape.
Yeah.
Because it's not a case of party politics. It's not a case of, oh, I like Labour, I like Green, I like this. It is morally corrupt what is happening in this country at the moment.
It really is. I mean, I watched the interview, and I think you were on as well on GB News yesterday with Rhiannon White's mother, who said that she's not even been contacted by anyone at all in government. Not one minister, not Jess Phillips, not Shabana Mahmood. No one has been in touch with her.
Yeah, so I called out Matt Weston, who is the MP for Rhiannon's family, so their local MP. And I called him out and said to him, you are a disgrace. It has been 18 months and you have never, ever reached out to that family. That woman was murdered by an illegal migrant that your government let in. Now let's get facts straight. If this government hadn't failed, Rhiannon would be alive and her son would have his mum.
Yeah.
So they've got blood on their hands, and I don't care how controversial that sounds, it is a fact. And ultimately, I called him out and said, you're a disgrace. Your only job is, as an MP, is to protect the people and the constituents in your area, and you have failed to do it. And do you know what he did? He got a PA to email Rhiannon's mum, Siobhan, yesterday and said on that email, I'm so sorry that I have failed to contact you. Please forgive me. Would you like to meet? I understand if you don't want to. I'm sorry, what? 18 months later, and he didn't even write it.
Right.
It is.
That's so awful, isn't it? So awful.
So
I mean, for people who don't know, and I'm sure there won't be many, Rhiannon White was a young woman, 27 years of age, stabbed to death with a screwdriver in a frenzied 90-second attack in 2024 by a guy called Den Madjek, who came here illegally. And who basically was recorded on CCTV dancing and laughing after murdering her, right? I mean, just an appalling individual, apparently arrived in the UK on a small boat 3 months before the attack, making an absolute joke of, these lefties who tell us all that, we've got to offer sanctuary to these people. They're running away from war. They're running away from, hardship. Many of them are coming here, living in temporary housing, whether it's a hotel or a house, and committing crime.
Yeah. So this man was from Sudan. He had already been through Italy, through Germany and through France.
Yeah.
And we know that he committed several offences in Germany. We don't know the detail because, the scenario with these men is the fact that they changed their identity. We don't know who they are. Right. So he could be anyone. He could have called himself Joe Bloggs in Germany. Yeah. So he ultimately arrived here. He was then in a hotel, put up in a hotel that Rhiannon was working in.
Right.
So she was cleaning, cooking, looking after these men because obviously I didn't know her, but what I have found out from her family, she was a beautiful, wonderful person inside and out, very charitable, didn't see wrong in anybody. And then she leaves work and is stabbed to death with a screwdriver. It was so brutal, and I hate going through this, but I think it's so important that people understand the brutality of this man and people like him. Stabbed her in the head and punctured her spinal cord and her brain. She then died 3 days later and left behind a 5-year-old son. Now, I have been dealing or speaking to this family, especially Siobhan, her mum. I cannot tell you the anguish and the pain that this family have suffered because they had to go through 17 months of trial before they could tell their story. And this man, this animal, lied about how old he was, and his defence team tried to make out that he was underage so that he would get a lesser sentence. And he refused to have a bone density test so that they could prove his age. He refused because of his human rights. Can you believe this?
I know.
So
well, you know what I read yesterday?
I know, it's just unbelievable.
And I don't know if you know that, but I think yesterday, I haven't seen a report on it today, but there was a court case yesterday, heard for the first time, with British lawyers representing a bunch of asylum seekers, illegal migrants, who were supposed to be getting deported, right, under this new scheme that Shabana Mahmood's invented to send people back to France without, any sort of, appeal process. They're appealing that particular new law, and Shabana Mahmood has admitted that she might have got it wrong. So we'll be paying for these lawyers, right? We'll be paying for these people who are living here illegally. They'll probably win their case. They'll probably get compensation, and they'll continue to live here, and they'll continue to stick two fingers up to our justice system and to our laws, and they'll never be deported. And, you know, I think there's 15 of them, and it wouldn't surprise me, given what we know about the percentage of criminals, probably 5 of them are going to commit some kind of crime.
Absolutely. Look, Mike, at the end of the day, right, there are 2 things here. The first thing is I said, just to finish off, because I know we're short of time. The reason that am standing and I support reform is because I've never been in politics before, is because I am so passionate about the need to change what is going on in this country. If we do not make change quickly, we are going to be absolutely destroyed as a country. And that is a fact, right? And you know, any lefty can come at me, I don't care. Ultimately, we are being taken for mugs. We are paying for criminals to have a better life than most of the working class people in this country. Lawyers are making a fortune out of us. MPs are laughing at us. These people should be ashamed. I don't know how they sleep at night. How can you defend somebody? How can you defend, and I know they're doing their job, but how can you defend someone that you know has attacked and murdered and destroyed lives? I just don't understand it. We have got to be harder. I hope that Nigel, if he gets into government, I hope that Nigel comes down as hard as he can on this absolute debacle of a country that we are now living in, because we have got to have zero tolerance. If we don't, our children will be lambs to the slaughter. And that's a fact. And I will have that conversation with anybody, any lefty, any liberal that wants to come at me. I will give them facts and figures about the struggle and the absolute humanitarian crisis that we are seeing with our women and children. And that is the truth. Our human rights as women and children in this country are being sacrificed for multiculturalism.
Yeah,
totally. It's an absolute shambles.
And more I hear people saying, you know, like we had that terrible incident in school in North London the other day. Apparently now the police are not treating it as a terrorist incident. Surprise, surprise, right? Well, they were a couple of days ago. Now, apparently, it's all fine. Several witnesses said this guy, who was a former school pupil, apparently, shouted "Allahu Akbar" as he was stabbing a 12 and 13-year-old boy in the neck. Luckily, we think they're going to survive. But, you know, it's enough. You know, what was it last week? The case in Nuneaton, you know, 12-year-old girl raped repeatedly, filmed in a disgusting and depraved manner. The guy who did it apparently was weeping in court. You know, well, good. You know, he needs to be put away for a very long time. Knowing this bleeding government, he'll be let out in a couple of years because they'll go, it's time for his early release.
Yeah. And I mean, look, the guy, I don't even like to use his name, but the guy that murdered Rhiannon, he got a life sentence with a minimum of, I think it was 27 years. Now, my view was he should be deported because in Sudan, where he's from, it carries the death penalty for rape and murder.
Yeah.
Now, her family, Rhiannon's family, were very anti that and do you know what? They were right. Because there is only so far that even if our government had the backbone to deport people, he would be deported to Sudan. And then what happens to him? We can't control what happens to him at the other end. So he would just disappear. He'd probably then end up coming back and coming back on a boat. That's the irony of the situation. So my view would be that he never sees the light of day again. If I had my way, Mike, and again, this is controversial, but I've got to a point where I don't care about being controversial, I would do a referendum on the death penalty for such things as where there is no doubt that somebody has committed such a heinous crime. Because there is no what's the word I'm looking for? I've completely forgotten my name. There is no, you know, the sentencing and the punishment is just not hard enough. There was a man who raped a 12-year-old girl, told her to cover her head. He got off with an 18-month suspended sentence. Lucy Connolly got more than that.
Yeah, I know. It's madness.
It's madness. So
Absolute
people
madness.
are coming here, they're coming to the country, they're thinking, I can rape a young girl, I can sexually assault people, I can do what I want, and I might get a slap on the wrist, I might get 6 months, but actually, prison in the UK is better than where I come from.
Yeah.
So where is the penalty? Where is the consequence?
And also, wasn't it the Nuneaton case as well, Ola, where the judge in that case tried to prevent the press from discovering that the assailant, the rapist, was an asylum-seeking illegal migrant, right? He tried to stop us from knowing that.
Did you see who the judge was?
Yeah.
Right, there you go. So again, covering each other's tracks. The boy that was in the school in Kingsbury who stabbed the 2 boys, 13, former pupil. Why was he a former pupil? He's obviously been expelled or whatever it was.
Right.
You've got to look and think, what are those children in radicalized households being subjected to?
Right.
You know, a child is a product of their environment.
Yeah.
And if a child is being brought up in an environment that is horrendously fundamental, and they're listening to all this hatred, then they are ultimately going to have the same opinion.
Yeah.
And that is what we need to come down on.
And we need to find. Yeah, I said this the other day. Surely to Christ, somebody will go and find those parents and find out what's going on inside that house. Because if this kid is stabbing people and shouting Allahu Akbar, then there's a problem. And maybe we deport the whole bleeding family.
Go to the mosque. Go to the mosque where he's obviously been radicalised. You know, this is the problem. I am by no means, Mike, racist. I'm not racist. I'm a practicing Catholic myself. I think everybody has the right to religion. Everyone has the right to their own thoughts and culture. But the difference is when that starts encroaching on everybody else's human rights and safety, and that poses a risk to other people, it is not okay. Simple.
Yeah.
Now, if you've got a child like that, 9 times out of 10, that child's got siblings and they all think the same.
Yeah.
That needs to be dealt with. End of.
Yeah, totally. Ola, what a fantastic appearance you've just made.
Ranting, I'm so sorry. I love a rant.
No, ranting is exactly what we want. That's what we need to do more of. You know, I'm going to have another rant in a minute about Rachel Bleeding Reeves and how useless she is. But fantastic to see.
Can I just say one thing to finish off, if you wouldn't mind, Mike? So just on that, Rhiannon's mum and Siobhan and I have set up a foundation called the Rhiannon White Foundation, and it is simply a non-profit organisation which will help mothers and children who have had their daughter or their mum or their sister murdered. About 180 women are murdered every year, and about 90% of them are mothers, and they leave behind children and families that are devastated. So this foundation is going to support them, therapy, enable the children to stay within the family unit rather than go to social services.
Right.
So that can be found. We're doing a GoFundMe. There's an X page and an Instagram page. Anybody that can support it would be really, really welcomed. Thank you. Cool. Amazing.
Brilliant. Where do they find it?
Darling.
Tell us again where you can find it.
So on X, it's called the Rhiannon White Foundation. You can find it on my page. You can find it on its own page. There's an Instagram page as well. So even if you can just contribute by doing a charity event or doing a sponsored walk or anything, just to help us raise money so that we can support kids like Rhiannon's little boy who has been left behind without his mum.
Yeah,
that'd
brilliant.
be amazing.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
You're doing great work, Ola. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you so much for talking to us as well. Ola Minahan there. What an amazing woman, and so many of you being very complimentary about her, because that's what we do here. You know, we augment people's voices. We help you to say the things that lots of people want to say but don't always get the opportunity. So that's the real home of common sense for you. Coming up, we're going to be speaking to Alan Mendoza. We'll get from him his view on the way things are in the world right now. I'll be doing my meltdown of the day, which is about Rachel Reeves and the state of this government. And of course, we'll be giving you an update on the poll. And we'll also do, I think we've got to do Plank of the Day as well, Pooch. We haven't done that yet. But let's get the news first with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, all. Here's the news with me, Edward Hughes. Oh, brilliant. Another glorious day in the United Kingdom on February 12th, 2026. Let's recap the absolute masterclass in national vibes, shall we? First up, billionaire Sir Jim Ratcliffe. you know, the bloke who owns a chunk of Manchester United and apparently fancies himself a geopolitical poet, has declared that the UK has been colonised by immigrants, and it's all costing far too much money. Shocking revelation from the man who's spent billions on footballers while the rest of us queue for NHS appointments. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, in a rare display of spine, demanded an apology because the comments were, wait for it, offensive and wrong. Groundbreaking stuff, truly shaking the foundations of discourse. Meanwhile, the royal-adjacent soap opera rolls on. Fresh Epstein file drips reveal Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, rang up the late sex offender while he was in jail for advice on her bankruptcy. Because when you're drowning in debt, who better to call than Geoffrey? Death is better, she apparently reckoned at one point. Classy. And of course, Prince Andrew's name is floating around again like a bad smell that just won't leave the corridor. The palace is definitely searching files, any day now I'm sure. Over in London, counter-terror police are investigating a stabbing of 2 teenage boys at a North London school. The suspect's a former pupil who apparently popped by a mosque beforehand, because nothing says routine school day like that combo. Knife crime initiatives are being rushed forward so kids get support earlier. How novel. Elsewhere, snow and ice warnings because the weather's decided relentless rain wasn't humiliating enough. Housing market showing tentative signs of recovery. Translation, still unaffordable but slightly less apocalyptic. Scottish rocket startup on the brink of collapse despite £26 million of taxpayer cash. Because why not flush more money into space dreams while we can't afford GPs in the Lake District? And just for flavour, laughing gas canisters exploding at waste centres hundreds of times a week. Peak Britain. Even the bins are trying to take us out. So yeah, business as usual. Immigrants colonising us. Royals phoning pedos for financial tips. Kids stabbing each other. Weather trying to kill us. And billionaires complaining about money. What a time to be alive. God save the king. Or at least the branding. Because apparently we're now just UK government instead of His Majesty's. Priorities, people. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Please do remember to like and subscribe. We've got an ever-growing number of subscribers, 135, 136,000, something like that. Loads of you watching every single day live as well. But do like us if you can. We're up to 4.7. Let's get it to 5. Maybe even get it to 6 by the time we get to 9:30. It's 9:05 right now. Let's have an update on the poll. The question today is, who's the least believable royal? Is it Andrew? Is it Harry? Is it Charles? Is it William? It might not surprise you to know that it comes in exactly in that order. Andrew, the least believable royal, 60%. Harry, 21%. Charles, 12%. And William, the most trustworthy, I guess, and the most believable royal family member, comes in at just 7%. So keep your votes coming in. We've got over 6,000 there now, so that's quite a good sort of base of our team and team building that we're doing here at the real home of Common Sense. Rachel Reeves is going to be the subject today of my meltdown. Let's get ready for it. There's that terrible picture. That's what we've got now. We've actually we've given up on putting any music on anything. We're just going dun dun dun. By the way, I seem to have spilt some coffee on my tie, which has really annoyed me. It's one of the most annoying things you can do, and it's one of the reasons why I don't drink that much coffee, because for some reason it falls from my mouth and it's gone on my tie. And this is one of my favourite ties. I don't know if I can get it out. I don't know because well, it could be. You know, it could be a meltdown. I might have to change my tie for doing Plank of the Week. Luckily, I've got a few spares here, which is always nice. Now, let me tell you about Rachel Reeves. Today, we've had new GDP figures have come out, right? And the GDP figures show that the economy grew by 1.3% in 2025, which is less than expected at the end of last year, right? So basically, Labour have missed yet another growth forecast, okay? Output has expanded by just 0.1% in the final quarter. This is according to analysts in the Daily Telegraph. UK GDP grows less than expected in the final 3 months of the year after budget uncertainty, right? And who's to blame for budget uncertainty? That's right, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves. Reeves insists that she has the right economic plan. She says that she is creating the conditions for growth and investment. Well, she's not, is she? I read this out earlier, 2 days ago. Rachel Reeves said this: rebuilding Britain takes time. Really? But thanks to the decisions we've made, NHS waiting lists are falling. No, they're not. We know from last week that the Times study showed, exactly as I had said, that basically waiting lists are reducing slightly because the government is paying hospitals and NHS trusts to remove people's names from those lists, right? Either because they've died or because they don't need the operation anymore, because they've gone private, or because somehow they've got better miraculously by being treated in some other way. So the waiting lists are not going down. They've got to stop lying to us. How can they get away with it? Thanks to the decisions we've made, NHS waiting lists are falling. No, they're bleeding well not, Rachel. You're a liar. Stop lying. Then she says, inflation is falling. No, it isn't. Have you been to the shops lately, you stupid bint? Hey? Everything's going up. Nothing is coming down. And that means inflation is also going up, right? Interest rates are falling. Interest rates are coming down slightly because the Bank of England is ideologically wedded to Labour Party policy. And so Andrew Bailey, that complete numpty who runs the Bank of England, who was so useless when he was there under the Conservative government that he didn't reduce interest rates and he kept allowing them to go up and up and up and up, created a massive, massive economic disaster, right? So the Bank of England is no measure of whether inflation is in the right place. What anyone with a brain will tell you is that basically everything is costing more money. They're about to put a tax on your holiday. They're about to put another tax on buying a car. They're about to put more taxes on hospitality. They're about to put more taxes on small business. They're about to increase everything that they can get their hands on. So how does that equal inflation falling? The conditions for the economy to grow are there, she said. With Keir as our Prime Minister, we are turning the country around. Nobody wants Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. Not even his own party. Not the government, not the cabinet, not Scotland, not Wales. Everybody wants Starmer out. Rachel Reeves is probably the only single person left in the country who wants him to keep his job so she can keep hers. Today, she's put out another message. Thanks to the choices we've made, we've seen 6 interest rate cuts and inflation is falling. No, it isn't. Stop lying. We have the right economic plan to build a stronger and more secure economy. No, you don't. Stop lying. Cutting the cost of living. Have you having a laugh? Who in this country will say that the cost of living is falling? Right? It's not. The only thing that's growing in this country right now is the size of my audience. Right? So stop bloody lying just to keep your job. It's embarrassing. Finally, she says she's cutting national debt. How? She's borrowing £20 billion plus every single month. We owe more money now than there is in the world. If we went to the IMF, Liam Halligan told us this last week, and asked for a bailout, they haven't got enough money. The International Monetary Fund hasn't got enough money to bail us out. She says we're creating the conditions for growth. No, you're not. Stop bloody lying, okay? That's all I've got to say. Talk to Alan Mendoza, because he, I imagine, is probably just as annoyed as I am about these lying politicians and their complete and utter duplicity. Alan, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the new show.
Hello, Mike. Delighted to be with you.
Really good to see you. I mean, what is wrong with Rachel Reeves? You know, how can she say that waiting lists are falling when we know that that's all a complete and utter shibboleth and a complete untruth because it's been proven by the Times just last week? How can she say we've got the conditions for growth, we're cutting the cost of living? I mean, it's just all absolute and utter rubbish.
Well, unfortunately, this is a narrative of a failed government, isn't it? I mean, they have to find something to justify their failed policies. They will tell you anything that they think you want to hear in order to escape from the fact that, you know, Britain is heading one way, and as you said, it's not growing, it's going the other way. We're in sort of deceleration mode, and there's no prospect of a change on the horizon, is there? So, you know, when you've got that, all you need is flim-flam, because that's the way to keep people going, oh, they're not that bad, are they? Look at, you know, the waiting lists are coming down, all the rest of it. It doesn't matter if it doesn't accord with people's views. It's just, you know, politicians spin, and that's all they know how to do.
Yeah, But I mean, I don't think anybody's buying it anymore. I mean, even people in their own party are saying, you know, this whole narrative is actually embarrassing because they're taking us for fools if they expect us to believe it.
Well, do you know what? I thought it was absolutely incredible that Wes Streeting leaked text messages, his own text messages, where he said the government had no growth strategy. This isn't just some random, kind of person. This is a senior cabinet member who is, spoken about, whether rightly or wrongly, as a potential leader of his party. And he's just blown, the hole in the government's argument they've been doing something. He thinks there's no growth strategy. Well, what's going on, Mike?
Yes. Well, it's clearly a very, very unsettled ship, isn't it? Rachel Reeves, I think, is probably the only person who really, really, really wants Keir Starmer to stay on, because without him, she doesn't have a job either. But, I can't believe that Starmer's still sitting there as Prime Minister. I thought he would be gone by the end of last week. His performance yesterday was woeful and quite insulting, actually, to the British people to kind of equate his scandals surrounding friends of paedophiles who he's been promoting to Partygate and to some of the, other little, problems the Tory party had. I mean, I think most people were pretty sickened by that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very weird Prime Minister's question time. He was being asked fairly forensic and, kind of specific questions, and he responds with these wild, swings in defence and tries to push those as, as an outcome. It's totally. I mean, you can see how rattled he was that he had to do that because he had no real answers.
Right.
So therefore, if you have no real answers, you just go swinging, don't you?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I think it's the first time I've ever kind of applauded Ed Davey. I don't know if we can play that, can we? Can we do that?
Yeah. To appoint one paedophile supporter cannot be excused as misfortune. To appoint two shows a catastrophic lack of judgment. The Right Honourable Gentleman once told this House that when a Prime Minister refuses to take responsibility, and I quote, "It only serves to convince people that things cannot get better, that governments cannot improve people's lives, and that progress is not possible because politics does not work." Does he still agree with himself? And does he share my fear that is exactly what is happening now?
Minister. People in this country, millions of people, have been let down for years and years and years. And one of the reasons was austerity, which his party supported. He should take accountability and take responsibility for what he has inflicted on this country.
I mean, that's just embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he was asked a perfectly reasonable question, delivered in kind of measured tones, and his response was austerity. Yeah. That's his response to the current crisis. Come on, this is a man who's flailing around, trying to. He needed to do anything he could to land some cheers from his backbenchers, who are no doubt seething in reality. And look, he got the cheers, but nobody believes that his party's a happy party, and nobody believes he's long for this political world.
No, I mean, I don't know what your kind of prediction would be, but I can't really see him lasting even to the by-election up in Gorton in Manchester. Can you?
I think he probably will, because recess is starting today, and once recess starts, you can't it's very difficult to get momentum behind, sort of a move against him. I think he's going to survive till then for sure.
Right.
I mean, there's a school of thought that says he survives till May, because why would Labour? Labour know they're going to lose those elections. Doesn't matter who's going to be in charge. May as well have him take the fall for it, and then they'll try and take him out at that point. But it is worth remembering they are notoriously bad at getting rid of leaders.
Yeah.
And remember, they couldn't even get rid of Jeremy Corbyn. That was, they tried a couple of times. They couldn't do it. They couldn't get rid of Gordon Brown back in the day either. So, it's nice to talk about these things, but Labour lacks the ruthlessness that's needed often to remove a leader. In this case, it's clearly needed, but whether they'll get there or not, I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of cowardly, though, is how it looks to me. It looks as though they're all frightened to make the step, because Wes Streeting could have done. I mean, he basically was saying that people have been briefing against him. We've got Lisa Nandy coming out and saying that Downing Street and the boys' club of sort of Morgan McSweeney was briefing against her and didn't really like women at all. They briefed against Sue Gray. They got rid of her. But they won't take that final sort of step and just push him out the door.
Yeah, that's what to lack ruthlessness. So that's the whole point. I mean, you would think of that, having marched everyone up to the top of the hill, they then will refuse to go over the top, to the final bit and start coming down again. But again, that's not uncommon because you remember 2009 when they tried that coup against Gordon Brown. What happened? James Parnell walked in there as number one. He marched up the top of the hill. He said, "Right, your time's up, Gordon. I'm going." And guess what? A lot of others are going as well. And then nobody followed him. If you remember, despite there clearly hadn't been a plan for him to have gone. So for whatever reason, they find it very difficult. I don't know what that reason is as to why they can't quite pull the trigger. But it's been a habit of Labour for a long, long time.
Sure. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was this very interesting interview with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the owner of Manchester United, who again, Keir Starmer has kind of called for to make an apology because he kind of gets it wrong once again, because Sir Jim Ratcliffe came out yesterday and said what an awful lot of people in Britain think, which is that we've been colonised by immigrants who are costing us too much money. I mean, it's a statement of fact, isn't it?
Well, of course it is. And that's amazing. That's what's so incredible, that Starmer thinks this is the appropriate response. The appropriate response is to demand an apology from someone who is stating the pretty obvious. But this again comes back to the first comment you made. This government seems to believe in a parallel universe that doesn't exist, where waiting lists are coming down and growth is is among us, and that immigrants have not kind of swarmed over the nation. I mean, the figures tell you. The figures tell you exactly what has happened in the last 20 years. There's been a dramatic increase in migration into this country, both legal and illegal. And it has had a transformative effect on our demography and on our public spending and on many other on public services. And it's not, the government takes no notice of it. But they're taking no notice of it. It doesn't matter in one sense. The people out there can see what is happening. They see it with their own eyes. So it's the worst part of what the government is doing is that they're telling blatant untruths that anyone with a pair of eyes can see are untruths. Why would you do that?
Yeah, exactly right. And they just sort of illustrates for me how out of touch they are, which takes me back to Rachel Reeves, who apparently was talking yesterday about having closer ties with the European Union. And, that's the great prize that we must all strive for, because they seem to think that, unlike everybody else who can see their economies failing over in the continent, that somehow if we're closer aligned to them, we'll be better off.
Again, and it's an extraordinary suggestion. I mean, everyone knows Europe's economies are in the doldrums. I mean, including our own. And the idea that suddenly this is going to be your engine of growth is extraordinary. But I've detected something quite interesting. If you look at where the Labour government thinks our growth is going to come from, they always posit it as coming from overseas. They think there are magical pots of investment that are going to unlock growth for all of us and potential in that way. They talk about it all the time about, we're getting investment from here and there and everywhere. The thing they're neglecting, Mike, and this is why they've gone wrong, is that the engine of growth for any economy is what happens inside the country, not outside the country. If you tax businesses out of business, which they've been doing, if you put tax on jobs, make the labour market far more regulated rather than unregulated, what happens? You end up destroying the engine of growth within yourselves. And if you do that, you're not going to get it foreign investment, because the foreign investor is going to look at this and go, well, this country isn't going anywhere domestically. The taxation is sky high. Bureaucracy is at record levels. Business cannot, prosper. Individuals can't prosper. Why are we going to invest in this country? They've got it all the wrong way around. That's the main problem here.
Well, only Keir Starmer could manage to take a delegation of businessmen to China with the view to boosting our economy, only to end up boosting theirs.
That tells its own story. So, what has come out of that trip? What has come out of that trip? We've had no, guarantees of any investment. We've got nothing. Jimmy Lai is locked up in a Hong Kong jail for 20 years now, a life sentence for him. Britain's being laughed at by the Chinese Communist Party. That tells you everything you need to know about Keir Starmer's abilities on the global stage.
Yeah, absolutely right. And just finally, speaking on the global stage, meetings this week between Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump, with a view to kind of figuring out what to do about Iran. It's still pretty tense, it seems to me, over there. I'm reading a piece written by my daughter, funnily enough, for CNBC in the Middle East, about how the tensions are still pretty high there. And also the Americans at the moment don't really have the wherewithal to launch any kind of military attack for any length of time. So it's a sort of a bit of a stalemate at the moment. How do you think that's going to play out?
Well, the Americans are moving the force into the region to do this, and they've got quite a bit of force there already now. With the Carrier Strike Group, they've got lots of different types of combat aircraft. They've got the support structures that are needed to support an airstrike from the sea as well. And I'm sure they've got their intelligence assets, working overtime and working out what they would want to strike. So yes, a few more things always help in this regard. But I mean, what clearly is happening is that they're playing for time themselves. Everyone's playing for time. The Iranians are playing for time, hoping the Americans will go away. The Americans are playing for time to make sure they've got the force in place so that if they do attack, it works very successfully. And we are playing a bit of a shadow game. So they're having these negotiations. We all know the Iranians are not going to give up their nuclear facilities or their ballistic missiles, all the things that they would need to do to, kind of assuage the Americans. So it's a bit of a holding pattern.
Yeah, right. And so do we assume then that the IRGC remains still very much in power, in position, and the uprising kind of has been quelled then?
Right now, they have been able to repress the sort of street activity. They haven't, of course, solved the bigger problem, which is that the Iranians think the regime is done and is a waste of time. But through the overwhelming use of force, and we know they may have killed as many as 50,000 of their own citizens. I mean, figures are very hard to come by. It can be anything from 10 to 50, I think, is the accepted range, which is a large range. But they've clearly killed a lot of people in order to drive people off the streets, and that's worked for the moment. But you've got to remember that these things are slow burn. And at any given moment, people could return to the streets if they felt there was a chance the regime could actually be toppled. So it's, again, even on the ground, it's a holding pattern right now.
Yeah. No, interesting. Alan, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. A very consequential and wide-ranging conversation, that. Alan Mendoza, thank you very much indeed, who is, of course, one of our favourite guests. He's Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society, Chief Advisor on Global Affairs on the Reform Party as well, who have got, of course, this big by-election coming up in Gorton, up in Manchester, over the course of the next few weeks. 26th of February, I think it is. Can Starmer hang on until then? Can he? Really? Jesus, could he still be here in the summer? Surely not. Oh, you've given me something to clean my tie with. Is that going to work? Yeah. Do you think? Yeah. Well, yeah, but the trouble is it doesn't always work as water on silk. So we'll see. There we go. I don't know if that's going to work. I might have to get it dry cleaned. Doesn't seem to have made any difference. No. Anyway, thanks a lot for that. Now I've just got a great big stain on my tie. I mean, this is one of my favourite ties as well. It's a Boss. Hugo Boss, look at that. Blimey. Anyway, should we do a few super chats? Because I think we've got a few in the system that we haven't read out. Thank you for that. Do keep bringing them to us. And do keep watching us every single day, by the way. Super chat from Bags. Morning, Mike. Look at your tie knot compared to Alan Mendoza's. I recommend the half Windsor. Yeah, a lot of people say, why don't you tie your tie in a Windsor knot? I don't know how to. It's as simple as that. Brilliant show, Mike. Keep up the good work, says Bright Spark, 3333. David says, Starmer is a wanker. I can't keep saying it.
Yeah, you can. Go on.
Wanker, 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 wanker. He's got 5 wankers. Yeah, well, they all are, aren't they, really? Lord Vader in Malaysia, another one from him. Some more regats coming our way. Drain the political swamp, Mike Graham for Prime Minister. And Mandy says, at the risk of being a pedant, Mike, can you sort your mic out? It's rubbing every time you move and it's driving me mad. Well, I can't help you with that. That is all the realm of Pooch and Charlotte. And they can't do anything about it either. So they can't hear it, they say. And they're probably listening more closely than you are. So maybe it's, I don't know. Something to do with your listening device, perhaps. Orla is a legend, says LTL. She certainly is. We're very pleased to have her on the show every single time. So another one from Simon. Thank you, Simon. He's doing very well, isn't he, Simon? What else we got? Oh, we got my sack, haven't we? Yeah. Should we have a look at what's in it? Have you got a little jingle for us?
Yeah, go on.
Go on, then.
Go on, then. I'll pass it over. Here's the sack. I'll find it.
I've got an envelope here with an elastic band on it and a couple of boxes. You'll be pleased to know. Well, it probably won't take me as long to open this as it did the last time. Oh, go on then. Play the jingle.
You've got mail.
You've got mail. Nice red tie there. Right. This is a... it's 2 pieces of mail, actually. for the attention of Mike Graham. And the address, by the way, if you want to send anything here, is Suite 19.6 Exhibition House, Addison Bridge Place, London, W14 8XP. I wonder if that's near Addison Road, which is where I went to school, in Kensington. It's kind of Holland Park area. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Cardinal Vaughan School for Boys I went to, the grammar school. Mind you, I said it would be easy to open this now. You know what I might need? Somebody should send me a paper knife.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You know? Mind you, they might stop it in the post, I suppose, because it might seem like a weapon. This is a letter. Oh, and some pictures. Some nice pictures. Pictures of a car. I don't know what that is. You can see the shadow of the person taking the picture. Oh, some potholes. This is from Mike Morrow from Frome in Somerset. Dear Mike, sorry to contact you the old-fashioned way, but I'm not into IT. I visited this beautiful designated car park in the New Forest recently. There's a beauty spot called James Moore Pond. Unfortunately, you need to be driving a Challenger tank to get through the potholes, which made me think of your poor dog Ziggy, who cannot now go on his daily walk to see his friends because the Forestry Commission, in their infinite wisdom, are now charging you to park in their places. Absolutely right. You would have thought, with all the extra millions of pounds they are now generating, they could have stretched to buying a few bags of pea gravel. You could not make it up. Yeah, absolutely. It says, love your new show, Mike. Never miss it. Thank you very much indeed. That's very kind. Sorry? Oh, a knife. Oh, great. A letter knife. Here we go. This is what we need. Here's another one. See, that makes life a lot easier, doesn't it? It also doubles as a butter knife, funnily enough. What have we got here? This is like a card. Oh, look, it's another heron.
Nice.
Nice heron. Very good. And this is from Jackie Davis from West Sussex. Dear Mike, my partner Gary and I wanted to send you this card to say how great your new show is. We are really enjoying it and watch every morning. We don't do social media as we are not very tech savvy, but have subscribed to your Substack. Oh, thank you very much. We have watched you for many years and we're so angry when Talk suspended you at first. Well, they say they didn't suspend me, funnily enough, but, you know, here I am. At first, we were upset, but now we agree it was the best thing that could have happened to you, as the new show is fantastic. You are so entertaining, funny and intelligent. You talk common sense and have never been afraid to stand up to the establishment. It's great to hear Pooch laughing in the background, and the studio looks fantastic. We love hearing your funny stories and seeing videos of Ziggy. It's also really funny when things go wrong. Well, actually, things haven't gone wrong that badly for a while, have they? We visit my aunt who lives in Bexhill on a regular basis. We have always hoped we might bump into you walking along the promenade so we could shake your hand. Well, you never know. I mean, I am going to try and get the dog back into going to the beach. I think we're just going to wait for the weather to get better, you know. Live shows, yeah. We've got some live shows coming up as well, Pooch has reminded me. So we'll keep you informed. In fact, we might have an announcement for you next week about that. Keep up the good work, Mike. You are a legend and have lots of loyal followers. We know your show will go from strength to strength. Jackie, thank you very much indeed. What a lovely, lovely message. And I've got a couple of boxes here which have already been pre-opened for me because of how long it took me to do it the last time. Now here's a card. Weighed down with taxes is what it says on that mug, and a note inside. What does this say? This is really interesting. Hi Mike, great to have you back. So I thought I'd send you a mug I designed. They're available through GBT's Etsy shop. Keep on doing what you're doing. Kind regards, Ellie Newman. Thank you, Ellie. That's lovely, isn't it? Weighed down with this. Certainly that's true of me. I was weighed down with taxes. Should I do that?
That's it.
There you go.
Perfect.
Over there, like that. And then the second one. This is great fun, actually. It's like Christmas, isn't it? Here's one that says, handmade with love. And this is Mornings with Mike Graham.
Nice.
Isn't that nice? There you go. Can you read that? Can you read that?
Yeah.
Mornings with Mike Graham. And then turn it around and there's me. Laughing. And why not? See, if you didn't laugh, you would cry. Have we got time to do Plank of the Day?
Yeah, definitely.
Before we...
Hello, it's Plank of the Day time.
Now, we discovered this story today. It's like a Mike Graham birthday every day, says Barker. Yeah, this is a story about shagging, which I know many of you don't probably want me to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's about a guy called Angus Lapsley. He's 55. He's Britain's ambassador to NATO. You can see him there on the left. And on the right is his lover, who can only be described as his PA. She's from Italy, and her name is, where is her name? Cortini. Francesca Cortini. She's only 29, and apparently he's moved her into his sort of grace and favour mansion where he lives in Brussels. Where basically she used to work with him. He's living in what used to be a 5-storey hotel, overlooks Brussels Royal Park, right? And apparently they're going at it like the clappers. And I think that's a good thing. So he's not the plank of the day. The planks of the day are his fellow sort of NATO officials who apparently have said he's going to have to give it up. He needs to stop shagging her on the basis that it's bad for the image of NATO. He's already had to resurrect his career once. It's not the only thing he's resurrecting, is it? Because he was once found to have avoided the sack for taking top secret papers from the Ministry of Defence and leaving them at a bus stop in Kent in 2021. He's obviously very easily distracted, this guy. Anyway, he says he's a dad of 2. He's struck up a romance with his assistant, Francesca, and the Sun understands in the paper here today that senior diplomats have raised concerns with the Foreign Office that Mr. Lapsley's relationship is inappropriate. What was it going to do with them? Surely he can have whatever relationship he wants. It's not as if she's a spy. It's not as if Italy are, you know, in some way one of our enemies. So I think, basically, we should give him a thumbs up, Angus Lapsley, and we should call his fellow diplomats, who apparently complained to the Foreign Office about him, they're probably just jealous. We should call them the planks of the day. So there you have it.
Hello, it's plank of the day time.
Couple more super chats before we go. We might talk some more tomorrow about you know, expensive operations for dogs and how vets are ripping everybody off. Here's one from Nathan who says, Mike, keep throwing things around in the studio. Brilliant. Yeah, do you know what? I can't get my hands on a Guardian in the morning because I wouldn't mind ripping one up. Super chat from Cindy. You are a very special man indeed. Lots of love. That's very kind. Thank you, Cindy. Glad you got the mug safely, says Ellie Newman. Yeah, that's the one that came, I think, with the one with my face on it. Thank you, Ellie. Very kind. That's great. And it's 9:35. Now, coming up, obviously, this will be stuff that you'll see over the course of the next couple of days. Plank of the Week we're going to film very shortly in the company of some very smart people. And then we're going to do Plonk of the Week as well. This time we're going to do it in a different order so that we don't get Plank of the Week confused with Drunk of the Week, obviously. So thank you very much indeed for watching. We'll see you all at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Keep liking the channel, keep subscribing to it, keep pushing those numbers because, you know, the more the numbers get bigger, the better the channel is able to perform and the better we're able to do more things and actually hire more people and you know, generally stop peddling like crazy swans under the water. But thanks to Charlotte, who came down to London today and will be here with us tomorrow. Pooch, of course, as ever. All of you who got in touch. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Remember, despite all of the others out there, it's always the others. Don't be a plank.